Good evening, welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board's regularly scheduled meeting tonight. Normally we start with introductions and we'll begin with Joanne.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Collis Adams, Select Board Representative.
Scott Hosanna, Town Engineer.
Tim Redmond.
Colleen Mayu.
Brian Mazer.
Barbara Griffin.
Richard Freeman.
David Pierce, I'm an alternate member.
Thank you, everyone. David, you will be voting tonight as Phil will not be here to attend the meeting. Correspondence and action items, we have minutes from 4/11.
Motion to approve with corrections if needed.
I'll second that.
Phil's not here, so are there any corrections?
Are there any corrections? Are there corrections? So the minutes will be presented, will be approved as presented. Will you amend your motion to add it as presented, please?
Make the motion to amend to accept as approved.
And
As
Brian?
presented, I'm sorry.
That's
presented.
all right, you got it.
Brian?
I second that.
Okay.
It's an
Okay,
item.
motion is made to accept the minutes from 4/11 as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Vote passes. Joanne, map 10, lot 22, requesting a continuance.
Yes, they're requesting a continuance. Initially, they were requesting it for May 9th, but they've changed the date to May 23rd because they would be the only item on that agenda for the night of May 9th. So this way they said May 23rd was okay with them. I did check the 65-day clock. It was not waived. I have sent out an email to Matt, and I'm just waiting to hear back from him. I don't see it as an issue.
So the board can accept a correspondence waiver of the 65-day clock, even though we generally do it at the meeting. That's still all right?
Yeah, I think staff can accept it and,
Okay.
add it to the file. We can always add it to correspondence for the
Okay.
next meeting.
As long as it gets done, because otherwise we'll be in violation of state law.
Motion to continue map 10, lot 22 to May 23rd at the request of the applicant.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to grant a continuance to the 23rd of May. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? If anyone's here for the map 10, lot 22 application tonight, it has been moved to the 23rd of May. So if you're here for that, we're sorry you came, but here we go.
Can I just ask a question on that?
Please.
Joanne, was that stuff in our packet?
No.
Thank
'Cause
you,
we did
because I spent at least 5 minutes looking for it.
We did receive the request prior to the agenda going
Gotcha.
out.
Thanks.
5 minutes, you'll never get
Sorry.
We have a letter from Southern Hampshire Planning regarding the St. A Field Map 3, Lot 62. We'll discuss that when the applicant speaks. There is a traffic memo, which we will discuss at that time. We have David Brown here requesting to be an alternate member of the planning board. Is he in attendance, Joanne?
There he is.
We'll invite you to come on up to the microphone, please. Could you identify yourself, sit down, relax, and identify yourself for the record, please?
My name is David Brown. I live at 51 Bay Street, Goffstown.
Thank you for coming.
Good evening.
My pleasure.
So at this time, this is the application we've seen, Joanne?
Yes. It was provided to you maybe a month or so ago. I think I might have a copy in here. Let me
Well,
check.
that's fine.
It's in our packet.
Oh, it is in the
Yeah.
packet, okay. Yeah, here it is.
Could you tell us why you'd like to serve as an alternate, please?
I just recently retired, so I'm looking for something to fill my time. I have worked with planning boards as an applicant in the past in New York State. I enjoy the field, and I think it would be something interesting for me to do in my retirement time.
Thank you. The only thing
Do
I would like,
you prefer David or Dave?
Most people call me Dave, but I'll answer to either. Thank you for asking.
so Dave, one of the things we like to see in an alternate is someone who's able to make the majority of meetings, because when you are called on to vote, sometimes the application was discussed at a prior meeting, or maybe 2 prior meetings. So how do you feel you would be able to make attendance? Would you be able to make most of the meetings, or as best of your ability?
Absolutely would, and I do apologize for missing the last 2. There were 2 miscommunications that were entirely my fault, but I am able to make most of the meetings, yes.
Thank you. Does any board member have a question for Dave? Joanne, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, staff would recommend the appointment of David Brown as an alternate to fill the position that we have currently open.
And whose position is currently open?
That would have been Gail's.
So this recommendation goes to the Board of Selectmen, correct?
Yes, it does. Well, alternates,
Or does the alternate?
you know, if it's an elected planning board, I believe that they can appoint their alternates, but if you give me a few minutes, I can look it up.
I'm just wondering whether Mr. Brown has to come back for papers, or whether we
Right.
move him to the table if we vote him in, or if he's even prepared.
Well, he would have to be sworn in.
He would still
yeah.
have to be sworn,
Yeah.
so.
Yes.
Do you remember,
The
Colin?
town clerk will
Does
be
the
in
big-
every 3 years.
Well, just because, I won't say, because we have an amazing town.
I think if we decide to take action on this application tonight, we would
You
ask
would have to be officially appointed by paperwork and come in.
and be sworn in by the town clerk.
Okay,
And when those items are completed, we would gladly have you attend meetings and sit down.
fair enough, thank you.
And you understand how that works if there is a elected member who's not present, that's when the alternates come in. And should tonight Dave is voting as an alternate now, we would generally rotate alternates on different applications so that everyone gets to participate in a voting fashion. Alternates are also encouraged to debate and ask questions. You don't just show up and you're a full member for questioning and discussion purposes.
Understood, thank you.
So here it says, an elected planning board may appoint 5 alternate members for a term of 3 years each, which shall be staggered in the same manner as elected members pursuant to RSA 673.
All right,
Every
so-
alternate member appointed to a planning board under this section shall comply with multiple membership requirements.
Right, so we appoint the selectmen, have to approve. Okay.
So does anybody have a reason why we wouldn't want to have David Brown with us as an alternate?
No.
So we'll have 2 days, we'll have to be careful of Dave B. or Dave P. We'll have to take minutes.
Well, I don't think there'd be a problem.
I don't think so, just an observation.
So at this point, is it a motion that's required, Joanne?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to appoint David Brown as an alternate.
Second.
Motion's been made to appoint David Brown as an alternate to the planning board. Are there,
Do we need to say what the term is, when his term expires?
I don't have that, I have to get it from the town
Kathy will
clerk.
figure it
But
out.
Kathy Ball will provide that
Okay.
information.
Thank you.
It's a 3-year term,
But it might be 2 years left. when-
right,
Right.
depending on how much time Gail had left.
is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. So, welcome. Glad to
Thank
have
you all
you.
very much.
You'll need to see the town clerk to get sworn in,
Okay.
and then she can let you know how long the term is.
Joanne will handle, Joanne, you're going to handle all the logistics for him, right?
Yeah, I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
Assume he's welcome to observe tonight, but then come back.
You're welcome to
Yes,
stay.
love it.
Okay.
Or you
If
could
you
go
like.
home and watch on GTV, whatever you want.
Go home. You can go home and watch the draft if you want.
Yeah, there you go.
Starts in 40, 50 minutes.
You have options.
All right. We have a volunteer request form from Barbara Griffin to be appointed as a representative to Southern New Hampshire Planning. Needs to be forwarded to Select Board. Somebody want to make a motion to appoint Barbara to Southern New Hampshire
Make a
Planning?
motion to appoint Barbara to Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on the motion?
That's very nice, considering so thank you.
I'm reading her qualifications.
Okay, motion on the floor to appoint Barbara to Southern New Hampshire Planning. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. CIP schedule. Board needs to appoint a chair. I have stated I will chair the CIP. Barbara said she will act as vice chair when she is available to assist me or if we have to swap off.
I believe I actually said I'd think about it, and
Consider
then
it.
you
No,
made
no.
the leap to chair and vice chair, just so
We'll have
the
to get the
record is
tape out.
clear.
I remember the word being consider.
Well, she's a very considerate person, so I'm sure she'll help me when we need. All right. So we don't need to vote on that. And we'll do, we'll do Hadley Falls at the end of the meeting, Joy.
Okay.
Okay. So our first item under old business has a request to be continued, which we've granted. The next item under old business is map 3, lot 62-1. Could you give us a rundown, Joy?
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself from
And that, you do understand that this, in order to recuse yourself, you have to have like some financial gain from the application. Do you?
Well, my spouse is an employee of the college.
I don't,
So,
does anybody find that a,
I do not, but I'll. leave
I
it
do
up-
not find it as a
I'll leave it
reason
up
to
Colleen.
recuse yourself.
I'll trust Colleen's.
I trust your judgment, but the only real reason someone recuses himself if they have financial gain from the application being approved or,
Unless you're telling us that he is the track and field
No.
director, in which case I might agree.
no, I just think that it's a conflict to have a spouse who is an employee at the college to be my own personal,
decided, sit in the gallery.
thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Okay. So, Joanne, could you give us a rundown?
Yes, so this application has been before the board before, and one of the outstanding issues was the traffic study and whether they were going to do more of an in-depth study. I'll let Scott cover this, so I'll just mention that we have come to a resolution as long as the board is okay with it, and there is a recommendation in here from the third-party consultant engineer, and Scott can elaborate on that. There's also a few items that came up during discussion with the applicant that really they haven't resolved yet. So I'd
You
like,
can apprise us of those after they
Okay.
do their thing,
sure.
unless he's gonna bring them up for you, so it might save time. Maybe Nick will bring up the
Oh,
unresolved
yeah,
items,
he
and then that'll
may.
save
I'm sure he
reading
will.
them
He
out.
has a copy of this, so.
So we'll save,
Okay, so that's where we're at with this. We did list recommended conditions if the board did decide to go forward, but they're not completely finished because I'm not sure what you're going to say about those other items that you need to discuss. So we'll have to just go along with this one and add things as they're needed.
okay. Any planning board members have questions for staff? Anybody have planning board questions for town engineer?
I have a question for staff. Joanne, can you just clarify what we are looking at as part of this planning process? Because the property is actually in Bedford, correct?
Yes, so the site itself is the fields and the complex itself is in Bedford.
Right.
The access to this site is through the main campus of St. A's, which is, the entranceway is down near the, what would you say, the politics?
New Hampshire Institute
of Politics. It's in that vicinity. And it also leads towards the Dana Center and in that area. That would be the main entrance. There were issues about whether Bedford could open up the gate on Runlet Hill Road. So there was some concerns about that, and the college felt that they didn't want to really open up that area for
Well, we're
security.
gonna do these things when the applicant.
I just wanted to clarify what we're looking at.
Okay, and then you're looking at the drainage, or parts of the drainage, because there was a complaint about the current drainage not working, and there were problems with the neighbor who resides in Goffstown. And
Essentially,
then
the drainage is on Bedford property, but it empties into Goffstown property.
there was the utility connection. They're using the sewer and water lines going through the existing campus.
They don't have permission yet.
Well, I mean, they're planning to
asking
use
for
them,
it.
they're asking for it, to connect up to the new line that would serve the facility in Bedford. And I think those were like the main issues.
Okay.
It's not that you're looking at the site itself that's in Bedford. Bedford Planning Board is taking care of that.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you. Gentlemen, for the record?
All right, good evening. My name is Nick Golan. I'm a licensed engineer and principal with TF Moran. Joining me this evening is Neil Duvall, the Associate Director of Athletics at St. Anselm College. I do want to offer one clarification to the opening, with apologies, in that it was very clear as to what the planning board's jurisdiction was this evening. And I think it's important to reiterate, because Joanne made it very clear to me, and I made sure that we had outlined it in our initial offering relative to the college and a cover letter and a project narrative. It's our understanding that New Hampshire RSA 67453 requires a public hearing be held with the town of Goffstown, but limits review to elements that are located in Goffstown, that being comprised of the before-mentioned access and utilities, which was mentioned in this letter. Now, there are two elements that are before you tonight. One, a limited site plan review. That's in regards to access and utilities only as directed by legal counsel. And that's what our conversation had been, Joanne. Relative to the other element before you, it's a development of regional impact. You are allowed to speak to whatever elements you wish to, is my understanding, in regards to the DRI. If you want to talk about drainage, we talk about drainage. If you want to talk about traffic, we talk about traffic in the lens that is the development of regional impact. And I'm not saying that because I don't want to discuss these things with the board tonight, but in that legal counsel for the town has specifically directed us to say this is how this should be done, I thought it important to reiterate before we got started. So with that little bit of housekeeping out of the way, we were asked to take care of a couple of homework items here as we left last time. I want to thank Scott and staff, and I can't believe I'm saying it, but the third-party reviewer. They were terrific. Devising a meeting in such a short amount of time, and the responsiveness is something that we don't always see, and in all honesty is one of the things people give a lot of municipal employees and third-party reviewers a hard time about. The level of action and how quickly they were able to address things I thought was immaculate, so I just wanted to publicly say thank you for those efforts. There was an expanded traffic memorandum created at the behest of the town and the third-party reviewer. We did hold a traffic scoping meeting in this room where we had all parties of concern, including also, I believe, fire and police, as the police department was very integral to how this process would work as well, given that evaluating patterns during events was of equal importance to the actual number of trips being generated by the facility. I'm happy to say that through diligent review that we had put together that revised traffic memorandum that went from, albeit a page, to approximately 12 pages to provide additional information and details as to the traffic that would be generated by the facility, not just in the typical case, but also our worst case scenario. And by that I mean just the most amount of people we could expect to see. If the bleachers were entirely full and there were multiple events taking place, how would that be addressed? How do we make sure that the facility would be safe? The police department was fantastic. They sat down with our traffic engineer to give us time. And my understanding is you should have in your packets a letter to Scott from Jason Plord, who's your third-party reviewer with VHB, saying that they agree with the traffic memorandum as presented. Happy to give you any highlights of the overall, but it's very similar to the discussion that we had previously. It's a minimal amount of traffic that is generated. Essentially, it blends in with the background traffic. When they have big events, there's going to be traffic, and we're going to manage it through an appropriate means as far as their special events plan, which will mirror what they have done historically because it's been so successful. But this does memorialize that process and puts it in the town's file for this project and any project moving forward, so there's a clear understanding of how that would be managed on the property. So given that that was, I would say, the largest item, going back through the meeting notes, I wanted to make sure I led with that to make sure that the board felt comfortable with these findings. If there are any specific questions or concerns, I provide the opportunity now to answer any of those questions.
So let's stay with the traffic study, and Scott, can we have your input?
Sure. So last time they were in front of us, we had concerns with trip counts associated with the new field, traffic control during special events, and I believe those were the two big ones, and they've addressed both of those. They use some
Explain the word addressed. I'd like to know what the word addressed means.
So they presented to us what the expected traffic is and how it would be handled. The only mitigation is really police details, which for the infrequent amount of times that these larger events will happen are probably the best option. I reviewed the school's current sports schedules, and spring season is baseball and softball, and I think that was, or was it lacrosse as well?
Correct.
Okay.
lacrosse.
And softball and baseball are pretty much handled, they head south, and they play most of their games where it's warm. Then they come up here and they have a few games in the spring. Fall is when they have soccer and football, and hockey doesn't spill into those seasons, but I don't see an issue with the overlap of events. Reviewing what they currently have as scheduled. So that concern, I don't really have a concern with it anymore. And then the way they addressed the trips is they looked at,
Could you provide us with the number for the record, please? What trips?
so they're expecting 115 to 120 peak hour trips. So that would be, likely they'd roll in at the start of an event, but at the end of an event is when the peak would really happen, because everybody tends to leave all at once, and when they come. So, and then they looked at some regional numbers, and they expect that 56% of the traffic will head down St. A's towards 114, and the other 44 will go the opposite direction toward Manchester. That results in, I think, 67 cars towards 114 and 53 in the opposite direction. I spoke with New Hampshire DOT, and their concerns at 114 would be when traffic at the peak hour hits about 80 additional cars, so they're below that threshold that DOT had any concerns. And then I also spoke with the police department, because in here the traffic control plan says that the officers can operate the signal manually to help circulate traffic through quicker. So I did confirm with them that is something that they're all the officers are trained for. And they also don't have any concerns with the proposed trip generations in this memorandum, and they're the ones that deal with the traffic, associated with larger events like graduation, and I think they maybe even had officers out there for Spring Fest 2 weekends ago. So, yeah, I think they addressed it. I don't have a concern with this field's operation and the traffic on our surface streets.
Board members, questions for the town engineer? Barbara?
Scott, this may be for you or Joanne. Southern New Hampshire Planning did a site review. There's no date on it anywhere. Do you know what, I didn't compare the track stadium hour info to the traffic memo. Do you have any idea which traffic memo version they were on?
They had
Because
the
some
old
of the
one.
things
It's all the old
were-
version.
Yeah.
It was, because
Yeah.
the stuff
Yeah.
on it.
As
okay.
mentioned in the opening, everything came together very quickly in regards to the
Okay.
updated traffic. So Bedford has seen all this information. It hasn't been relayed to Southern New Hampshire Planning yet. We'll address that separately as part of the development of regional impact.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Tim, if I could. So in the event the team schedules change, and they will, weather, transportation, what have you, and we do have games that overlap with one another, is there a mechanism in place to notify someone and what actions we're gonna take to get additional police on scene, or what do we do when that
The
happens?
manner in which it was identified within the report, which was through the correspondence with the police department, is
Okay.
it's a phone call.
Okay.
It's, hey, we're gonna have something,
Okay.
we're gonna need some more people,
Okay.
and they ramp up.
Fair enough, just wanna make sure that
It's a fair question.
because there will be changes.
So baseball and softball, both of them have pretty limited capacity out there. I didn't count, but I looked, and both those fields don't have much seating. It's really the football field and the hockey stadium that have the most
Lacrosse
seating.
is spring course?
Yes,
I don't know.
spring.
Yeah.
And is there a fall sport I'm missing besides soccer and
Cross country,
cross country? Okay, I'm sure that doesn't have a lot of spectators.
field hockey.
But lacrosse could draw
Yeah.
some numbers.
And some of their games are played at, what was it, Dairy Field or, no, where did I see? No, I'm sorry, I was thinking, some of the soccer games went from the grass fields to
To
the
the
main
turf.
field. Yeah,
Correct.
okay. Which obviously won't be the case now that they,
Exactly.
sorry, it was a couple weeks ago I went over all this stuff with them, so.
Okay, thank you.
So Joanne, did this board determine there was a regional impact? And we sent out notices to our neighbors?
Bedford, no, the town of Bedford did.
Sent us one.
Yes. And that makes this board be able to comment to the Bedford Planning Board, which
does
we
it-
already did. And the planner got,
Explain to us what was commented to the board then.
we had a list that you had come up with, which had to do with regional impacts. And
Okay.
it was basically the things I said before,
Okay.
drainage, issues with hooking up to the utilities, the Runlet Hill Road issue, the
what-
traffic.
And what was their response?
Was the
And-
PFAS one in there?
The PFAS, and the flooding on the neighboring property. And they haven't met with them since. They're scheduled for I believe it's the beginning of June.
May 6th right
Oh,
now, but it's likely in that we need to first meet with you folks to make sure that we have traffic resolved and utilities resolved. So before that happens, I'm remiss to say that there's a date certain. We're scheduled for May 6th currently, but it may
Becky
move.
told me June, but,
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. This is what she said in the email. But anyway, they have not met with them yet, so I don't have any comments from the actual planning board meeting. But she did say that Bedford had similar concerns on those subjects.
So what concerns me is that the facility is in Bedford, and Goffstown is taking the full impact of all the traffic. And I think Bedford needs to find a way to allow the applicant to open the gate at Runland Hill, supervisory open of the gate to allow traffic to exit that facility onto Runlet Hill via, Runlet Hill. And it could be operated by the university, the school could operate the gate, it wouldn't be left open all the time. And I think this board needs to stand firm and say that if this facility's in Bedford, Bedford needs to assume some of the traffic.
Well, I know for a fact, I've been there for graduations, and they do open the gate during graduation, and they send the traffic out through Bedford. But that's a big event with lots and lots of people.
I would like to see the Bedford Planning Board recognize that this traffic is completely on our town. And it also impacts Manchester, because when 44% of the traffic leaves, it goes into Manchester, down into those neighborhoods. And I think Bedford needs to stand up and say, look, we're going to allow them to open the gate. When the events are open, we'll allow the event to clear, a portion of it to clear, and then we will have the college officials re-close the gate until another event happens.
And maybe everyone could come to a certain number, like if you have X number of cars there.
No, I don't think any number is involved, Joanne. I think
Because
if there is an event at that field house and traffic in that parking lot would like to exit at Runlet Hill, they should have the option to go out to Runlet Hill if that's the way they would be better served to leave the facility. That way, it's a good faith effort on Bedford's part to allow this traffic to exit there under controlled conditions.
I think, as stated before, the majority of the traffic is heading down 114 to get back on the highway.
Well, I don't know if
But
you...
Runlet Hill is a shorter way. You can stop at Market Basket on your way to the highway. It's also
I'm not really
ultimately a direct cut down to the highway.
I'm not
It's
really
kind
sure
of
if your data... that
You don't know where you're going.
Well, I'm not sure that what you're telling us is data is in any way backed up with facts. You don't know who's going to be there, and you don't know what direction they're going to go. No one says that because they go there, they're going to go to 114. I want to leave that, I don't want to discuss that part of it. I'm looking for the Bedford Planning Board to acknowledge this and help us resolve the traffic.
Mr. Chair, can I repose that in a different way?
Wait a minute, the board member, Collis?
Tim, are you thinking something similar, there'd be a gatekeeper out there, and that would be the responsibility of Bedford to pay them or whatever?
No, it's the responsibility of the college to put
That's what I'm saying,
one
yeah.
of their people
Yeah.
to open the gate when
But if there's an expense, then Bedford ought to be stepping in and helping, is that what?
I don't see an expense involved. I just see
Well-
just the fact that we're sharing the traffic, and I'm sure the college would provide a staff member of the college to unlock the gate, let the parking lot clear out, and then lock the gate when they're done. Dave?
I believe having the Runlet gate open for exiting would present confusion to those parking. People going to a sport event or any large event, they're going to be familiar with, this is how I got into the parking lot, this is how I'm going to come out of the parking lot. And to have some sort of a flashing sign saying, oh, you can exit over here, the participants are going to be unfamiliar with the neighborhood. That's my view.
Anybody else? Before I let the applicant speak? Nick?
Certainly. I realize your feelings on this are very strong, Mr. Chairman. It was reiterated in the prior meeting as well as what we've heard this evening. I am looking for, as a board, if it's a concern for everyone, but also to ask the question if we have completed a traffic memorandum at your request that states that there won't be additional impacts to your surface roads. Why are we pushing to open that gate? And I don't mean that flippantly, I'm just trying to understand the nature of the request.
You're adding 175 cars at your own number to our roads that weren't there before for the Fieldhouse events.
I don't see that bared out in the information provided, Mr. Chair.
Well, I'm very skeptical of traffic reports, because traffic reports
Understood.
can be, people who pay for them usually get what they want out of traffic. Now, there was reviewed, and I accept the fact that it was reviewed by a second party, and as well as Scott, and they concur with your numbers. But even still, this facility is in Bedford. End of story.
I don't disagree with you, and it's because of the state RSA that we're here to speak to the access
Right.
as well as the utilities.
Right.
But I do want to, you asked us to go forth and create a study that was paid for by the college. The third-party reviewer was paid for the college. Scott put in his efforts to review it. I do feel that the results are validated and that it doesn't provide a rationale to say that there's an issue there with traffic such that we should consider the gate to be open. If there's a desire for that gate to be open for another reason, okay, that could be a discussion. But the college has been very steadfast that that creates an operational and a safety concern for them to have another point of access to the school. I think it's also a fair point to be made that it creates some confusion. Right now, the manner in which traffic is handled at the school appears to be very successful. We've heard that from the police department, we've heard it from the fire department, we've heard it from the college. It would be of their interest to maintain that status quo. We've just developed a memorandum that says this is how we're going to deal with our traffic. What's being suggested is very much contrary to that. And I don't know that that's a road that would be appropriate to go down. Now, I do hear the concern in that you're asking that the town of Bedford acknowledge this. And I think that's a fair request, that either the board or through their planning staff should acknowledge in writing, or however you determine to be best fit, that they are requiring that that gate to continue to operate in the fashion that it does. That seems like a very reasonable request, and we'd be happy to further you in that endeavor.
We'll see how it goes when they respond to our statement.
Okay. So reviewing the notes from last time in regards to the site plan portion, and in my head I am treating this differently. So relative to the site plan limited review that's before the planning board, there was kind of I was off the cuff request as far as the lighting. Hey, what do these things look like? I did receive this, I think, just today, so I wanted to at least pass this along. I try not to provide things day of because it's difficult for the board to process, but I wanted to at least say, hey, I got something. It was asked, hey, what do these lights look like? What does it look like in comparison to the field as far as how these lights are cut off? So if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, just to pass on, I think that was one of your requests. Was just, hey, can I get it? It's all one page. Just to get a feel for what these look like. On the cover page, it shows basically 4 different types. To the far left is basically the new and improved, and then you work your way down the line to see what the past generations of lights are. I'm not sure what's out there now at Groponi. It's probably the past generation, but it provides the opportunity to show how technology has advanced and would be incorporated into this project. Now, site lighting is definitely more of a development of regional impact review item, but having that information, we thought it prudent to share, especially since it was a request at the last meeting.
Okay.
That's
Any
fine.
questions regarding the lighting for Dave?
One of my observations on the photographs are, these lights appear not to be downcasting in a 360-degree circle, but they're more directed towards the field?
The term, I think, is downcast directional.
Okay.
It's
I'm not-
an odd mismatch of things, but with the advancements in technology, they have the ability to tilt all of these individually so that they can capture the illumination values that are required for the field, but basically do almost a full cutoff directly behind it. That's pretty cool. The other,
Any other questions regarding lighting from board members? Okay, thank you.
The other item that we were asked to address, I think the electrical service was straightforward, the telecommunications, the gas are all straightforward requests. The sewer service was the other question. So we have reviewed that with DPW on the Bedford side. They do not feel that an interconnection agreement is appropriate for a service line. They did acknowledge that if this was a municipal trunk line, that a inter-municipal agreement would be appropriate. Now, it's at its initial stages, and there's still correspondence going back and forth, but my expectation is that Bedford will be reaching out to, I assume, the Sewer Commission with a solution as to how we address the fact that we have some sewer flow being generated in Bedford, but is being contributed into the Goffstown system, acknowledging that you both have caps with Manchester as to your sewer flows. It'd be my hope that an agreement could be struck to basically say the town of Bedford will allocate X amount based off calculations by a professional engineer to say this is what is being generated, and that the town of Bedford would balance that flow equation to make sure that the town of Goffstown would not receive less flow relative to being allowed to discharge to the city of Manchester.
Have you had any discussions with the town of Bedford's personnel regarding the outflow from that?
I wish I could take credit for this, but it was actually the town planner's suggestion, working with Jeff Foote as their DPW director. We still have to figure out what the flows are. There was correspondence just today with myself and Brian DeFosis, and that he wants to make sure that we're all comfortable with what those flow numbers are. But it seems like a really good solution to something that would be otherwise be fairly problematic.
So you'll have those numbers when you do go before the Goffstown Sewer Commission?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And the intent would be when we do so, that it would be vetted and reviewed, approved by Bedford, so that way we can all be on the same page that it's agreed to.
Okay.
Mr. Chair? I do concur with one of his observations that a single parcel connection doesn't rise to the extent where an intermunicipal agreement may be proper. But if it was a major trunk line from Bedford to into Goffstown, then yes, certainly an intermunicipal agreement.
Okay.
I got that from discussing with the director of sewer department in Bedford.
Thank you.
So we realize we have a little bit of work on our end to make sure we finalize those calculations, but that would be our intent. It seemed like a good fit that serves everyone.
Any questions regarding the sewer service request to bring the sewer into the Goffstown over the town line? Now, Joanne, what are we granting in regards to that? We're granting them the planning board's permission to bring sewer from Bedford into Goffstown? Is that what the request is?
The request is to hook up to the utilities, so that includes sewer and water.
But the request to hook up to the utilities isn't granted by the planning board, it's granted by the sewer commission. So I don't know how we can grant that as a planning board when they haven't received it from the sewer commission.
Well, it's not, it's the same thing as, you know, a store that comes in and they have to hook up to the sewer. The sewer commission has to give approval, and that's always a condition of our approval.
That's a condition of approval at this end?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, what else was it? The water's not our purview, or is water one of those?
It's actually
Manchester Water Works.
Manchester Water.
Okay,
Yep,
but
there were-
is that another request?
No, so just along the lines of any site plan review, if there were any concerns that was had by the town engineer or otherwise, you know, Manchester keeps a pretty tight lid on what you can and you can't do and your design standards and specifications. We have to meet all those requirements, otherwise they won't let us connect.
So all the elements of the sewer connection will be handled through the Bedford and Goffstown sewer departments?
That would be my expectation.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. What else?
So that, in my mind, addresses all of the requirements under State RSA 674-53. I would suggest that we take up the other items of development and regional impact separately. They're equally important, but based off of the feedback from the town attorney, these should be separate items, if that should be the favor of the board. And then we can go through each one of those items as well as part of our presentation this evening.
So Joanne, what do we need to do? Break these down one item at a time and vote on them individually?
No, I think, I'd like to see if you have any concerns or if those items have been addressed. So if we start with number 1 was the traffic, which you've already discussed. Number 2 was Runlet Hill Road. Number 3 was the items that Attorney Bisson had brought up about his client, the Algers, who live at 110 Violet Street, and the problems that they're having with the drainage.
We haven't even
currently.
discussed that tonight.
No, I know. That's another one of the items that would need to be discussed.
So let's talk about it right now while you're at it.
Okay.
Scott?
Yeah, so, actually, I think Nick had mentioned it in his presentation the last time he was here, that there was a failure with the existing stormwater BMPs that are on site. So there's 2, they're not supposed to be wet ponds, right?
One was intended to be a wet pond, the other was intended to act as more of a bioretention filtration type
But
system.
they both just retain water all the time? Or I guess
In certain
it's a-
aspects,
it's a-
there's definitely a hard pan layer that is limiting infiltration. It's not in totality. There are some places where you can see infiltration taking place because you can see the staining along the side slopes and the concrete structures, and then it drops at varying intervals.
And I did view it this spring, which is one of the wetter ones we've had. So these 2 BMPs have, and I'm not familiar with this style, but what is that rock area
So
that?
that was intended to serve as a conveyance channel.
Okay.
Really to take stormwater that overtopped from the initial basin so that it could then carry over into the secondary basin for ancillary storage, treatment, or otherwise before
Okay.
it ultimately discharged to the same location downstream and off property.
All right.
So all the stormwater was going the same places, just it wasn't following the
Okay.
full circuit it was supposed to.
Yeah, it's just those large rocks. I'd never really seen that style before. And so that area is where the failure took place, is between the 2. There's a breach in that channel that he's talking about. And it's literally, it's just a stream right now, and it's directed right toward Violet Street. When I was
Why
out,
hasn't that been fixed prior to this application?
I
It's
don't
a
know.
failure on the part of a prior approval.
I'm not sure it was
So there's a
even
wetlands
picked up
perp-
until you,
Yeah,
until
so
you
that was picked up
surveyed.
as part of our initial site observations. A wetlands permit was submitted in order to make that correction because it's jurisdictional wetlands at this point. The wetlands permit has been approved at the state level, but the concurrence from the federal regulators has not been given yet. So by law, we can't go in there and mess with it until they issue their final approval.
So,
Did we have a drainage maintenance agreement with the college on those structures?
I don't believe so because it's not in town. These drainage structures are not in Goffstown.
Except that they dump their water into Goffstown.
Yeah, and I
It's
mean.
kind of a gray area.
So
I can offer that is being done both at the town level for Bedford for this application as well as part of the AOT application, that those will be in place moving forward.
So some of the requests that I have are associated with these ponds. So currently, they're not being maintained. They're not mowing them. They're very overgrown. So, you know, I'm requesting that the town of Goffstown gets their biannual maintenance logs. We want to be included in the pre-con. I want the correspondence for the construction inspection. That's pretty much it for those ponds. And I don't know if we can have a drainage maintenance agreement with them, because, you know, if there were an issue with some of these other ones in town, you know, we could bring someone in and make the repairs and then charge. But I don't know if we could cross town lines to go
I think you can
repair
make an
something.
agreement with Bedford
With
DPW to work something out, unless you're gonna stick it on them to maintain it, and they're gonna say, we don't want it.
I would offer as part of Bedford's stormwater permit, which they enacted, what was it, in 2018 with the change to the MS4 regulations, they have those powers now.
Yeah.
So if that ends up being the determination, the review and reporting of it, it's already a given, it'll have to be done for AOT. It also has to be done as part of the Bedford stormwater permit. So those belt and suspenders that we typically look for to make sure things are appropriately maintained would now be consistently applied to these areas.
Okay.
So regarding your statements about the infiltration pond and the sediment lines you noticed, do you have data for percolation rates with that soil?
Yes, we do.
And does it actually percolate?
Eventually, yes, it is. And that is,
So how can we
that's
call-
not exactly an engineering response. Let me
That is a very
rephrase that.
poor engineering response.
Let me rephrase that. The
So-
reality is the infiltration rates are poor. They're representative of sea soils, which are the soils that have been identified for that area by a site-specific soil scientist. They are above the threshold for alteration of terrain to allow infiltration. Once halved, you have to have at least 0.5 inches per hour, which we have.
And how do you differentiate between infiltration and evaporation in those cases, just using your stain lines?
We are not allowed to count for evapotranspiration. We are only allowed to count for what infiltrates into the soil, and that's based off of either the KSAT values, the worst KSAT value that's available for the region, or actual physical testing of going out there to show what those soils are.
Okay, because I rarely ever heard of Hartan that percolates.
Again, what I want to be clear about is that there are certainly portions of that site which carry those properties. There are some overlying soils that are a bit sandier that provide some opportunity for infiltration. You know, we didn't dig a hole to China as far as going 20, 30 feet deep, but I can say at least the first 7 to 12 feet that we were able to identify that substrata. That substrata is identified within our stormwater management report and would carry with the stormwater management report that would be ultimately approved by Bedford, as well as the alteration of terrain bureau. So we'll have a good record of what's there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any board members have questions on the drainage for either Scott or the applicant? Hi, crowd tonight.
Mr. Chair, if I can offer, we don't take exception to those requests. Copies of the report seems perfectly prudent.
So are you going to try to reach out to Bedford then and see if you can have a mutual drainage maintenance agreement?
I
That you would
can-
be able- you
yeah,
could at least
I'll-
look at it since we're the recipient?
Well, I mean, Joanne, you're sending a letter over, an email over to Bedford, and so I'm assuming that there needs to be some sort of verification of a maintenance agreement and an agreement between DPW departments as to maintenance and monitoring.
And
Was that-
I've been in contact with their town engineer, so I don't mind asking for.
No, I don't, but she's got to send she's
Yeah.
got to send something
that-
over to the planning board with,
Did that
Well,
statement go with the
comments.
last request you made for drainage? That went with the last one?
Correct.
So you're
Yeah.
just sort of reinforcing it at this point?
yes. It's nothing new.
All right.
Okay, the next item was whether the facility would be rented out to camps and things like that
I
during
can give a
the
more
summer.
definitive answer. The answer is yes, but it would be during non-scholastic elements of the school year, so that which it wouldn't overlap with other sporting events that could potentially be taking place. So to give you the definitive answer, and I know that was what was requested at the last meeting, yes, it would be rented out. When exactly that takes place, I don't have that crystal ball, but I can only say that it would be during times where you don't have scholastic.
Well, be aware that all these elements are going to need to be documented so that flow rates can be determined for the facility.
I agree. Do you want to speak to any of those elements?
I don't want to go over them tonight. This
Okay.
is for the sewer commission
I
to do.
would agree.
But I'm warning you that if you're going to bring in data for flow, you need to make sure that you've covered every possible scenario so that the possible flows can be determined, unless you want to be charged for every day.
That's fair.
Okay.
Are there any camps that take place there during the summer now?
Yeah,
Soccer
Yes,
camp,
yeah,
sorry.
summer camps
Soccer
up there.
camp runs from June to August.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was just curious. And there's no, I'm not aware of any traffic issues with those. So.
Joanne, could you go on to the next one, please?
Yes, plans for testing of groundwater before and after the fields are installed for, I don't know how to say this, PFAS.
Right,
Just
so I guess,
PFAS.
I guess that Bedford's gonna have to
PFAS.
Bedford's gonna have to comment on the PFAS issue before we can come up with anything.
So I can give you an answer to that one as well. There's been some recent guidance provided by EPA as far as drinking water standards. Now, there's no direct correlation to stormwater discharge, but our expectation is we'll have a plan for testing relative to the proposed stormwater from the field, and we'll come to that conclusion, and that would be associated with the approval that's associated with the Bedford site plan.
But
That is what their request had been.
we need to differentiate between drinking water PFAS standards and drainage water PFAS standards. because it
Unfortunately,
goes to the
none
neighbors.
exist for the latter.
So you're gonna have to come up with some information about that.
Yes, sir. So we do have the benefit of, we're not the first folks to think of installing a synthetic sports field. This has been done by many other communities. The research that our construction manager had done alluded to some requirements that are currently being followed in Massachusetts. That's what we had previously provided to the Bedford Planning Board as a suggested course of action. That'll be reviewed and refined between now and our next planning board meeting.
Next, Joanne?
The last one was hours of operation.
Is there gonna be an ending time at night so people know the lights are gonna be turned off, basically?
Yes.
Have you come up with that?
A revised schedule is being derived by the athletics department in evaluating all of their different sports, so they can definitively say, all right, at what point do we know these lights will be off, acknowledging that having the lights turning off at 10:30 or later was far too late.
So you're gonna come up with some definitive answers for a
Correct.
future meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So anything to do with the lights, that would be something that we'll document through the Bedford site plan approval process.
So we're not gonna have a vote on anything just yet, because we're about to have a public hearing. Any board members have questions for the applicants? Pardon my cough, if we, before we move on. Barbara?
This is sort of more on a regional basis, this concern, and I'll acknowledge I might be stretching it, but I will do this with a straight face. I understand that Scott will be at a pre-construction meeting. There happen to be families of kestrel hawks that nest in that part of St. A's. They actually nest at a tree at the end near the intersection of Runlet Drive, and you can see them soaring into the trees that are down, that abut what is going to be a corner of your field.
Okay.
And I am assuming from this layout that you're going to have to do some tree cutting. And
Can you direct me on the bigger map where we're talking? Are we talking down here?
so where's the, give me where the Runlet Drive access
So here's
is.
Runlet Hill Road.
All right,
Here's
so
where
there are
it
some
is.
trees right here.
Yep.
There's Runlet Road, this is the proposed field. There's, the parking lot is here. There's a section of trees. You have trees over in here. And you can actually, when they're nesting and active, see them flying back and forth.
Food sources potentially or otherwise. I can state that relative to the area that was indicated, the majority of the growth that is in that area is very low-lying shrubby type area, because that's also where that stormwater management basin is.
All right, but if you could, because they have a nesting period and they're, and I'm sort of, it would appear you're going to probably miss the nesting period by the time you get through this. Not that Nick doesn't do a terrific job
Thanks for the
moving
plug.
things forward, but I would really like your people to keep an eye out for that. 'cause
That's a fair
If you
request.
destroy those nests with small hawks in them, they will not make it.
Understood. No, thank you
And
for.
that's like regional, they go all over the place, so there you go.
Called the Hawks for a reason.
They're called the Hawks for a reason. Fair enough.
Anything else?
No.
Can
All
I
right.
ask a question?
Go ahead.
So I think it was in the Bedford meeting minutes that I read this, but the turf company had some testing done for PFAS associated with their turf, is that correct?
I cannot say that I am the expert when it comes to the manufacturer, so I'd be remiss by putting, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth on something
Okay.
I'm not overly knowledgeable on.
I don't.
There was a memorandum that was issued by them that
Okay.
explained certain elements. I don't think I'd be the right person to respond to it,
Okay.
though.
So, and you're not aware of any, I guess, anything, really any advances in it that they're stepping away from using anything with PFAS in it on these turf fields?
It's something our construction manager is assisting us with, because that's something they're more ingrained in than we are as a civil site engineer. It's giving us the opportunity to learn a lot more about it, and as soon as I
Yeah.
have that information, I'll be happy to share that with this board
Yeah,
or anyone else.
it was news to me when we heard it last time that this was an issue, so it's, it's concerning and.
Yeah, it's certainly been defined as a potential concern. The EPA issued the first direction on drinking water standards when it comes to PFAS. So we have those at least knowing that, okay, that element's now being addressed and money will be allocated, and ideally those things can be shored up.
So do you envision monitoring wells? Is that the idea? Or are you planning to pull it from, like,
Reviewing, I'll give you the limited knowledge I have, and please take it with a grain of salt, that in speaking with the manufacturer, you have the ability to essentially sample from the catch basins.
okay,
So that way, you basically are taking a grab sample, and then you'd have the ability to evaluate for whatever constituents of PFAS are deemed to be appropriate.
then you're gonna do testing prior to construction to see,
The
so
testing,
you won't have, bad data if it's already out there?
the testing procedure, I believe, would follow the outline of the field. I don't know the final details of that program, but I would think we could certainly pass that along to the planning board as part of that development of regional impact to make sure you have that information.
Okay.
Be happy to share it.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
But that's an evolving area of concern, regionally, nationally, even internationally. And that's going to take a long time to play out that science.
I would tend to agree. We'll do our best to provide all the information possible and apply the appropriate safeguards. Essentially, we're standing on the shoulders of others on these items.
Yeah.
These aren't things that we're coming up with as a team. We're reviewing the best available data and applying the most appropriate testing that we can.
Well, there's an element in between the natural soil for testing for PFAS and the artificial turf, which is going to test for PFAS, is the multiple thousands of yards of fill you're bringing in to build the whole site up, to build your facility on. So you've got a lot of areas.
I don't know that you've had my cut fill
I
analysis
read your
just yet.
cut film
but
analysis. I watched all the lines starting way down there.
It
and
is.
Make it all the way up
We
to
do
the
our
top.
best to balance the site, because the reality is we do have a cut on one side and a fill on the other. But the reality is you're also bringing in a fair amount of selects. One of the things that makes these fields really tick is those subsoils. So you have to make sure that you have an appropriate stone matrix below it, one to capture and wick away that stormwater, because otherwise, like a roadway, you get the upheaval in the
Once
field.
again, you want to test that soil too, to make sure you're not importing something that you don't want.
So-
Okay, at this time, we have no more questions for these folks. I'm going to ask you guys to take your place in the gallery for a minute, and I'm
Yes,
going
sir.
to open the public hearing. At this time, there's an open for the public hearing. If any neighbor would like to come up and be heard, it's a time to come on up, or neighbor or anyone in the general public that wants to speak.
Good evening, folks. John Bisson, I represent the Algers family. As I was here a few weeks back, and I guess I'm focusing more on the regional impact aspect of all of this, because the specifics of the initial application where you started your conversation tonight are interesting, but the comment that I heard is that much of the burden is being directed at Goffstown. It's actually, much of the burden is being directed at the Algers property. I mean, that's the one that's right there.
I think I've said that about 4 times since
Yeah.
I've been sitting up here.
Right, well, I'm focusing it, we're the first line of attack. We're right there. And the reason that this is important is because of that. What we have here is a drainage problem already because of a failure of a system years ago that has gone unattended. That's a concern. The drainage that is already in failure has created wetlands on the Algers property that weren't there before. When you replace real turf with artificial turf, it's an impervious surface, and that drainage is going to increase. Much like all of the other issues that we've been talking about for regional impact, traffic, lighting, we didn't hear anything about noise tonight. All of those are very difficult to measure for purposes of enforcement after there's a site, right? How do we measure light spillage after the lights are there? How do we measure noise after the noise is there? So we are very concerned about the fact that we have an example here of a drainage system that was promised that has been in failure for some indefinite period of time, with the suggestion that the applicant has no responsibility because it failed and they didn't find it and there it sits. So similarly with things like lighting and spillage. For example, the lights were on at the field last night until 10:30 p.m. and it was simply practice. So if you put a condition that says there can be no spillage beyond a certain distance, how is that enforced after the fact? Are we calling the police? What are the residents of Goffstown doing to enforce these conditions? All of those conditions are equally important. The noise has been measured. There's an agreement for noise that says 60% at the border of the 60 decibels at the border of the St. A's property. It was measured at the home of the Algers at 70 decibels. So it is exceeding the criteria and the standards that are already out there. And what's the enforcement? Do we call Joanne and say, last night it was 70 decibels, what do we do? So what we are very concerned about is allowing this to develop without appropriate protocols that say, for example, if spillage becomes a problem, what's the solution? Well, it seems to me the solution should be turn off the lights, but it needs to be enforced. There's obviously a concern for hawks, and I get that, but let's be concerned about the residents, and let's not lose sight of the fact that all of these things are very difficult to enforce. So as you go forward, as you wait for feedback from Bedford on the regional impact, it's conditions, it's how do we monitor the amount of drainage that is going on Goffstown? How do we measure PFAS? And if PFAS becomes a problem, what's the solution? Because we can't let it out of the bag and then just have an enforcement. Because at that point, St. A's will have spent millions of dollars in a facility putting artificial turf down, and the Algers will be one resident looking at their very large neighbor potentially lighting their property, noising their property, if that's a proper verb, draining onto their property, all focused at them.
Are you going to go to the Bedford Planning meeting? and
We have been.
State your concern?
We
Are
have
you going to
been.
continue to go to the meeting?
Absolutely.
Because these really are decisions that the Bedford Planning Board makes. We can pass our comments to them, but we have no authority over what the Bedford Planning Board approves for light spillage, noise spillage, and all those elements, because the facility is in Bedford.
Respectfully, I disagree. Because
You disagree?
I disagree.
And what would you say our responsibility is?
This is a regional impact because Goffstown is being impacted. So whatever condition, you have the right as an abutter to be in Bedford, just like I do. Force them to put these conditions. If you want to protect the traffic issue, then Goffstown should send somebody to Bedford and say, open the gate. You are an abutter. I am an abutter. I have been there. The Algers are paying me to be there. Your voice, sir, is louder than mine. If the chairman of the planning board from Goffstown goes to Bedford and says, this is a real problem. You're going to dump your water on our site. You're going to put PFAS into Goffstown. You're going to put the lights on. You're going to put noise. These are our people in Goffstown. The problem for the Algers has been they are in the middle. Goffstown says, go to Bedford. Bedford says, oh, they live over there. It's not as big a deal. Bedford has already shut down the traffic. You know why? You know why. They won't open that gate. They're going to say the original approval was the gate is closed. That was approved years ago. Nobody appealed it. The Supreme Court didn't say it was wrong. That's a condition of approval. Too bad, so sad. We are not opening the gate. You want the gate open? Send someone to Bedford. So you do have a voice. You do have a remedy. If it's certainly not to the beginning of this conversation tonight, it's the regional impact. This has significant regional impact. And going to Massachusetts for PFAS standards, go to Portsmouth. They have this problem right now. They were promised that artificial turf would have no PFAS. It's not true. You don't have to go to Massachusetts. Go to Merrimack. PFAS is a problem. There's a drinking water standard. That's because the EPA is behind the curve. Absolutely we don't want PFAS in our drinking waters. But I don't think we want it in our drainage either. That ends up in our groundwater. There's no standard for that. 10 years from now, there'll be a standard for that.
Thank you.
Hi, Chris LeMay, Bedford resident, 103 Worthy Road. I'm just really here to listen to both parties, both planning board meetings. I've been to both of them. I'm going to be a future Alger. I live in this map. I live right here, so I'm on the Bedford line. Yes, but all this light, all this noise, PFAS, drainage water is all going to come down and affect all these areas over here. My house is exactly right here, right there. So I'm going to see all this, I'm going to feel all this. I'm not against progression, but I'm against the noise pollution, the chemicals. The runoff water is already a huge factor, as you know, not just for Goffstown, but also Bedford. I don't know if it's part of the failed culvert or not, but we have so much water that comes down here. I have 2 buildable lots that are now wetland. They weren't wetland 20 years ago, but now they are. There was so much water coming down here. I'm concerned about the chemicals. There is no tree line in this whole area. The noise, the lights. Up here, trying to do the map here. This is the softball field in relation. This is the football field. Lights have been on in this football field past 10:30 every night this week. I can see that all the way from my house every night this week. I can't imagine what these lights are going to look like outside my house amongst everyone else. Who am I going to call? Am I going to call Goffstown Police and complain about the lights, or am I going to call Bedford because it's on Bedford property? Like who's going to be responsible for the lights in this situation? Who's going to be responsible for the noise? This is going to be a rental property. They're going to want to make money off this. They're going to rent this out all summer long, and there's going to be sports camps. I know for a fact it's going to happen because I hear the sports camps now, and I'm okay with that. I'm a good neighbor, I get it. But they're also up here in the grass soccer fields. They're going to be down here now with lights on, late at night, disrupting all these neighbors, and you're going to hear the Bedford noise coming to you guys because St. A's is on Goffstown property. So that's why I'm here. I'm stuck in the middle. I'm going to be like the Algiers. They've been dealing with this for years. I've been a really good neighbor to St. A's. I can hear football stadiums. Great, I love it. I love football. I love hearing the noises. But when they do practices at 6 o'clock in the morning and they're blasting, all types of music till 10 o'clock at night, it gets old pretty quick. The leaves are coming in great. Now school's over. So, the leaves, these guys are out there practicing February, March, April, May. My daughter does the same thing at Merrimack College. They're on turf fields all night, all day, practicing. There's going to be a multi-purpose field used for softball will use it because their field's going to be wet. Baseball is going to use it because their fields are wet. You're going to have soccer. You're going to have every sport. They have so many fields up here. I don't understand why this couldn't be brought up. Like, why do we need more turf and more fake turf that has chemicals in it? I just don't understand. It's just not worth the rub. I just don't understand why we're doing all this. I really don't. What I'm hearing about environmental, chemicals, people's water, land being disrupted, it just doesn't make any sense. But I just wanted to voice my opinion. I appreciate the board hearing me. You guys asked a lot of great questions tonight. I got a lot more information, I think, at this meeting than I did at the Bedford one. There was more information forthcoming, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak tonight?
Good evening. My name is Roger Blanchett. I live next to Chris at 105 Worthley Road in Bedford. And I just wanted to express my concern also about the water. it's really wet there. Both of us have busy sump pumps. In the 10 years that I've been there, the land is getting more wet. So I'm just expressing my interest in the long-term plan for maintenance of drain water. I share the concerns about the operation of the facility as well. But I just wanted to express my concern and my interest in a suitable plan, long-term, to manage the water. That's my primary concern. I just want to speak up about tonight.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Blanchett, you're Blanchett Martin Revocable Trust?
Yes.
Okay, just want to confirm
Sure.
where you are.
Thank you.
Everybody else set that would like to speak tonight from the public? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Board members, what do you want to do with this tonight?
Tim, I don't know, Joanne, what is being looked for? I have one comment before hearing the public hearing. When we get these sort of regional impacts from St. A's, can we actually get a copy of the proposed site map and something that indicates, like it would have been helpful, David has gone and gotten the maps, it would have been helpful to actually see where the town line is across this map that we're looking at and know where these properties are that we're looking at, as far as what we have,
It should also be in your package, so
Yeah.
just to
It's in your
reaffirm,
packet.
everything that was submitted to the town of Bedford and to Southern New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission was also submitted to the town of
Oh, that's
Goffstown.
from the prior meeting, and I didn't bring it. Okay, so that's from the prior meeting.
Yeah, all that information should have been.
Sorry,
included
I
at some
should have
point.
brought it, because I have a couple of packets that I've
You
been
have the
holding,
large
and I
plan set
forgot.
right in front of you too, the
Okay.
athletic field one.
All right,
You can take one of those if you want to.
okay. But I guess, to Tim's point, what are we looking for? And I will tell you, I have concern for abutters, because I know Bedford does a great job of managing their applications before they actually get to final consideration by the planning board, something we are often envious about, but it precludes discussion at the board level of a lot of these issues, because the powers that be have already worked out light shut off and how that's going to be done. And everybody goes, oh, DPW agrees, but the issue in regards to noise and lights and that kind of thing, I guess I just don't know how much we can raise it as Goffstown.
Well, that would be part of comments regarding the regional impact.
Right.
And like I said, I did send over one email to Becky, the town planner, and she acknowledged it and said she would share it with the board. It's just that they haven't met with the applicant since your first meeting with him.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would offer too, in that these items that you're speaking to, the items that are being spoken to by some of our abutters, those are items that we're addressing with the town of Bedford. We were asked to put in a plan in place for maintenance for drainage facilities. We were asked to put a plan in place in regards to the lights for their installation. What would those light illumination values be? And also post-construction to confirm they are actually what we said they would be. In regards to the acoustics of the facility, a similar agreement as to the lights. What are we saying those acoustical values are going to be? And then to check them to confirm. So those are items that we understand are important not only to Goffstown but Bedford and are being addressed at that level. I realize that was also part of Regional Planning Commission's commentary. But those are things we have to address at the town of Bedford level or it can't be approved.
So Nick, you had stated earlier that you had your wetland permit for that drainage work that needs to be done.
For the state, but not the federal.
For the state,
permit.
but not the federal yet. Does that work that you're planning to do include any solutions for helping with the drainage that these folks mentioned?
100%. It's resolving the issue that
The whole
currently
area.
exists. So let me put that in different context. So the way in which those stormwater management areas were intended to work is they were interconnected. Right now there's a breach where not all the stormwater is going where it's supposed to. We're fixing that as part of our stormwater management design. Because it's jurisdictionally wetlands, we have to ask for a permit in order to go into that area to do that work. one of the things that I've reviewed with the town engineer in Bedford is he's looking at this and saying, well, how is this intended to work? Well, let's make sure that it does. And that's what we're endeavoring to do.
Have you had any correspondence with DES and are they concerned with repairing it?
It was great. DS was involved. We had a Zoom call that involved AOT as well as Wetlands Bureau, so we could have both sides of the coin, because sometimes there's different opinions as to what would be done. Everybody was in agreement on what the stormwater management tactics should be as far as inclusions for best management practices, as well as making the repairs to the channel.
Okay, so they're not trying to push that the water should continue to go there or anything? Okay.
If anything, what they're asking us to do is to evaluate that wetland and make sure that it's not going to be marginalized as part of this work, to make sure that it continues to operate as it was intended to.
But if it's no longer receiving that flow, will it?
There'll still be stormwater that goes to that area,
Okay.
as was intended previously. The outfall from the stormwater management basin still ultimately directs towards that area. You do still have some infiltrative properties. That stormwater doesn't just come down from the sky and go down deep. It does travel horizontally as well. But all those things are accounted for.
Okay.
The idea is just to make sure that that wetland continues to operate at the level that it does now. It's not, when we grade wetlands on a scale of 1 to 10, it's not a 10, it's more of a drainage way than anything else. But it's making sure that those functions and values that exist present day will continue to survive thereafter. I know Collis knows what I'm talking about from that standpoint.
Are you saying we're going to look at existing conditions now, or what they were at some point in the past, back when it was originally approved? I mean, I hate to age myself, but I remember
So do I.
approving and issuing that back when it was still called the site-specific program. That was a long time ago. So I'm not gonna put that on my shoulders. So what are you proposing?
A condition of our permit is to evaluate that wetland over a course of 3 years.
Oh, okay.
To confirm that it's continuing to operate as
Yeah.
intended.
And the stormwater management system as well?
Yep. Well,
And
that'll be a function of the AOT, which is yet to
Right.
be approved.
Right.
All the operation and maintenance requirements that go with any project would carry through with this as well, to confirm that it's working the way it's supposed
But
to.
the plan and the application you submitted to AOT, does that talk about existing conditions as they exist today? Or are you trying to replicate something that existed some time ago? Do you follow me?
I do.
What benchmark?
As
are
far
you
as
trying to
the
get to?
interconnection of those basins, we're evaluating them as if they, in the manner in which they were intended to be built.
Okay, so you're trying to get back to square one?
Yes, sir.
Joanne, is the information from the approval for the parking lot originally still available in the records upstairs? The parking lot that was built before, just over the town line, we had that in front of us way back when.
If it is, I couldn't find it, but I
like-
can look further.
I'd like to know if there's a drainage study with that application that quantified the ponds and their function.
Do you have
What was the
original?
parking lot for?
They just built it as a parking lot, I remember.
That was the construction of this parking lot, correct?
The one that you're going to be using for that
The one that,
project?
it's the
Okay.
centralized parking lot.
And isn't that where the drainage from that parking lot goes into the structures that we're talking about that have failed? Is that where that?
I want to be careful about the repeated use of that word. We have an element that is not working correctly. The system has not failed, is not in disrepair. There is an element that is that swale that's connecting the two basins that is not
All right.
operating as intended.
I would say that element failed.
We can argue,
That's fair.
we can argue.
It's semantics.
Over words
It's semantics, but
until midnight. I don't want to do semantics.
I don't want to do that either, but.
So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna look for that report,
Before you say that, the parking lot was in Bedford.
but we reviewed that as part of an approval.
Okay.
We had that in front of this planning board.
It was another regional impact thing.
All right, I'll look.
Now, maybe Bedford has the design information for that ponds that aren't
I
failed.
wouldn't be surprised if Nick had it, if they're working on it.
I'm evaluating that.
you
That was
have the
in
original
response to
data?
Collis's comment. We're evaluating those basins to
historical
make sure
information.
that they're working the way they were intended to, the way they were approved.
So in
So-
fairness to Nick, he didn't handle that application.
Thank you.
So do you have
It's probably in
access?
grade school.
You have access to that data, Nick?
Yeah, I
Could you
imagine,
provide
yes.
this board with that at some time, please?
I have no
Let
issue.
Scott review it to make sure he concurs.
And I just want to make
TF
sure,
Moran didn't handle that?
I think it was T.F. Moran.
Oh,
Was it
okay.
Nick?
it wasn't me personally, no. As part of the development of regional impact, if that is a concern that you wish to express to Bedford, that you would like to have additional information to evaluate, I have no problem providing that.
Do we know what year that was built?
2011?
Okay, I'll get one.
You know, I think it's around that time period. It was about 10 years after Caponi Field,
Well, I don't know when they built Caponi Field. so
99.
99.
So it's in that area. So it has an alteration.
2009, 2011.
It has an alteration of terrain, i.e. formally site-specific permit associated with it.
All right, we have a lot of other applications to get through tonight. We're dragging on this one way too long. What are we doing with it tonight, Joanne? Do they need some permission from us to move forward
No,
for their
but,
Bedford application?
but ultimately, you know, I would recommend to Bedford that this board, you know, that Bedford doesn't approve anything until they hear again from this board. Because
Joanne, can I ask, I apologize, kind of interrupted you.
You did interrupt.
I
Let her
apologize.
finish.
Go ahead, sorry, Joanne.
Thank you.
Because there are still some issues here that you wanted to hear back on.
Right. But there are some issues that we could give some clarification on tonight if we chose to.
Sure.
In other words, the sewer access and the water access, which is 2 points that they were asking about. I don't think that there's anything that needs to be further discussed by this board. They're
No.
conditional approvals based on other
Right.
approvals from other boards and commissions.
Correct.
So is there any items in your list that we could dispense with tonight to move on and make less work for the next meeting? So the sewer and water one.
Sure, so,
I thought that what Scott talked to as to staff recommendations on page 9, 6, 7, and 8 had all, we thought were all good to go.
those would be suggested conditions of approval.
Right.
That section there.
Right, but so I think so
What page are you on, Joe? Sorry?
Page
Page 9.
9, okay. Not me.
So the items that were in question was the traffic.
Joanne, we need to move this on. We've already, Tim is trying to get to what we
We
can
have a lot of
issue.
other applicants here, and I'd like to get the items out of the way that are non-discussable, which is the sewer connection, the water connection. If Scott concurs with the traffic study,
And the access through St. A's to Bedford. So those are the two items for commenting on the fact that they're using Goffstown's roads to access the site. The other items are the regional impact.
so we should not approve anything that's a regional impact item until we've got word back from Bedford Planning Board. But ones that are non-regional impact, we could act on them tonight and get them off the list.
Right, and that would be the under staff recommendations, those conditions that are listed.
Which number, and where are you?
Page 9, 1 through 8.
Pre-construction meeting. Well, the biannual inspection and maintenance logs should not be in there because that's not been decided through Bedford yet. That can't be in there. You didn't
Okay,
mention the
so
water.
that's a Bedford item.
You haven't done the water or sewer connections in this list 1 through 7 that I'm not reading.
So number 8, we need to request to Bedford.
Well, we can't approve number 8 tonight.
So you can take away that 8 and add approval, conditional upon approval by Manchester Water Works, and then in number 9, approval by the Goffstown Sewer Commission.
Those are easy.
Okay.
And then would you want Nick to come back here for further discussion on the regional impact since you had outstanding
willing-
questions?
we'd be
Only if we
willing to do that.
disagree with him, because then he's gonna wanna come back and argue, so let's wait and see what we do. So, are you stating that the Manchester Water Works and Goffstown Sewer Commission approvals are to be conditional approvals only at this time?
And the other items up above.
Right.
the 1 through 7.
So we'll strike 8 and make what I just said number 8. And we can get those out of the way for the future
Okay.
discussions. So Joanne, could you just very quickly read 1 through 8 so everybody knows what we're talking about?
Number 1 is note on the plan the board's final written decision, including any waivers, conditional use permits, and any outstanding conditions of approval or conditions subsequent as required by Chapter 266.
Okay?
Number 2 is include appropriate professional stamps and signatures.
Yep.
Number 3 is provision of digital files, AutoCAD submission on North American data of 1983 and North American vertical datum of 1988.
Yep.
Number 4 is provide PDF and DWG of the approved plans.
That's a little redundant. The DWG part is the AutoCAD files from number 3. I don't know if it matters.
So what do you say about number 4,
We
Scott?
can just cross out and
DWG.
DWG.
Okay.
Cross out DWG?
Yeah.
We don't even know what that stands for, do we?
It's
That's
a
why-
file extension for an AutoCAD file.
See, I'm glad we approved that.
Number 5, the Goffstown Planning Board approval is contingent on final approval by the Bedford Planning Board.
Yep.
Number 6, the town of Goffstown shall be included in the pre-construction meetings.
Yep.
Number 7, the town of Goffstown shall be included in all correspondence related to construction, observation for the project, i.e. field reports, testing results, and field changes.
Yep.
And then number 8 is,
Manchester Waterworks and Goffstown Sewer approvals are to be conditional approvals only.
okay,
Everyone agree with all those stated staff recommendations? So if someone wants, if we don't have any problem with them as a board, someone should make a motion to approve those 8.
Could somebody please explain to me what 5 means?
So when I started asking for that because when we get the final plans, when I get the signed ones, it's a scanned copy, and they're scanned so poorly that I can't read the numbers on them. So I like a PDF version of the final plans that get signed.
No, 5.
Number 5.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right, I like that explanation.
that's because this overall site plan is Bedford's, and if Bedford's not going to go forward with approving it, then your vote is kind of, it doesn't matter at that point, because...
So we don't need 5, because if it doesn't happen, it's all moot.
Well, true, but I'd like to cover all bases.
That's why we've been talking about this for...
Okay, are we striking 5 or leaving it in?
Whatever, leave it in. It makes
the
it
answer?
more confusing. Leave it in, whatever.
Okay,
No renumbering that way.
so I need a motion from someone to approve staff recommendations for number 1 through 8 as presented by our staff. If we're going to approve them.
I'll make a motion, I'll make that motion.
Seconded by?
I'll second it.
Discussion about what is left for us to do if this motion is approved, please. Explanation.
Then the items that
Regional
you
impact.
went over this evening, that I wrote them all down, having to do with regional impact. Nick would come back, and there's items
So
here
the
that...
planning, so the Bedford Planning Board understands that this is as to the plan only, and the regional impact issues have not been resolved.
Correct.
Which they can blow off if they choose.
They can, but I don't think they'll
I mean, just so
blow
we're all
off regional
clear.
impact comments from the town, abutting
Okay.
community.
All right.
Just don't think they would do that.
We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. So those items are off the list for tonight, Nick. We have to deal with the regional impact items at a future date.
So do you want to continue the regional impact hearing to a future date now?
How do we know when Bedford's going to do anything?
Well, may I offer this suggestion? So if I understood correctly, the limited site plan approval that was requested, we've acted on. There were outstanding items in regards to the development of regional impact, which you are requesting more information on, and we are happy to come back. I would suggest that we pick a date certain, I don't have that correspondence from Becky that says June, but if,
It was just an email that she sent.
When is the Bedford meeting? Does anybody know that date?
Well, I was told in an email that it was the beginning of June, but Nick thinks it's the beginning of
we
May.
had one, it was scheduled for May 6th. I don't have the Bedford schedule in front of me, but they meet, thanks, sir. We can look this up quite quickly. Because I think it would make a lot of sense also for notification purposes, so all these folks hear it when they need to come back, if that's acceptable. And I apologize for taking this additional time from you. Board. I would say your first meeting in June would be the most appropriate.
What is the date? What is the Bedford meeting date that they're gonna see your application?
I am doing my best, sir.
Okay.
I think I'm connected to your Wi-Fi. All right. So the 2024 meeting and deadline date schedule for Bedford has them meeting on May 6th, May 20th, and then June 3rd.
What's your expectation based on submissions and getting on their schedule?
Well, I think regardless, I'll be able to come back to you and give you an update on all
We-
these items.
We can't discuss the regional impact items until after Bedford decides what they're gonna do.
That's
So
fair.
after your meeting with Bedford, we can talk to you.
Understood.
Is
June-
Bedford
June
at the
3rd.
point where they're ready to take a final vote?
Oh, I can't speak for them.
Because
Are
Can
you
we
on
just
their
pick a
agenda?
date and the abutters?
June 3rd is their next meeting date after May 6th, and May 20th is a workshop date. So when does the
I'm
Goffstown?
asking you,
June
are you on the
13th.
Bedford agenda's, planning board agenda for a date right now?
Yes,
as
May
we-
6th.
May 6th, okay. So we're gonna put down
June-
May 6th as the,
June 13th would be,
so
if you want to
after
do
that.
June, would be.
we can do a
otherwise-
date certain after May the 6th, and if he has to request a continuance, he can request a continuance.
Yep.
So let's do that second meeting in May, Joanne, that first meeting is
So May 23rd. I think that's.
the 23rd?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So, my point is that if we have comments of regional impact, we want to get those comments to them prior to them voting.
Right.
So I'll need to find out when they're, is everything wrapped up for them to vote on May 6th? I don't know.
Why wait for them, their schedule? Send them to them now, and they'll have them. You already sent them once, right?
Well, okay, I can send these,
Yeah.
even though we don't have the answers to them yet.
Right.
Okay, I'll do
You don't have
that.
to wait for them to schedule a meeting. We can get them to the planning staff over there, and they can insert them into the meeting schedule when it's done.
Okay.
Okay, that works.
So, I'm looking for a motion to continue this application to May the 23rd from somebody.
So moved.
Anybody want a second?
Second.
Okay, motion to continue this application to 5/23 of '24. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much for your patience, everyone.
All right, Joanne. Get your guns ready, we're moving.
Okay.
We're already behind. So, the next application is a new business. It is map 5, 54, 54-1, 6, 56, I can't say all of it. What is that for?
The lot line adjustment.
No, I'm supposed to Joanne to come.
Oh, you ready? Okay.
Get on.
Thank you.
This is a lot line adjustment for Hemley Investment Property, which has a conditional approval for 30 residential condominium units. And it's on Mass Road, near the Shell station. So when they came in with their site plan for the condos, part of the drainage structure was on the abutting lot, which is owned by PEL
Langley.
Properties, which is Steve Langley. And I don't know what the reason was, but they've decided to come back and do a lot line adjustment, or a lot line adjustment where the parcel A would be transferred over to lot 54. It would be taken from map 5 lot 56 and map 5 lot 56-3-1. And this way, all of the drainage structure would be on the new lot with the condos. The Conservation Commission did meet with the applicant last night, and they voted in favor and they had no concerns.
Okay. So, does anybody have any questions for staff before we ask the applicant to begin? Seeing none, your name for the record, sir?
Yep. My name is Jake Dorfler, I'm with the Dubay Group, and I'm...
Could you spell your last name? Our minute taker is not here.
Sure, it's Dorfler, D-O-E-R-F-L-E-R.
Thank you.
I'm here representing Hemley Investment and Pell Properties. If it's okay with the board, I'd like to pass out it's just an updated version of what you had. It's something just to clarify.
What's different on it?
There's an inset I put on, it just clarifies there's a current easement, conservation easement that runs up the property line, and that really wasn't shown on it hasn't shown the new path it would take on the plan you guys received. This just has an inset, it just shows you clearer.
You can pass them out, but usually we don't look at plans that haven't been vetted through staff. Go ahead.
Should we accept this as complete before?
Yeah, you're right. I forgot to read the paperwork on this.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we find the application has no regional impact and accept it as complete.
All right. So there's a motion to find this application complete, no regional impact, and they're not asking for any waivers that I can see. Colleen, and did you second it, Colleen?
Yes.
Anybody wants to discuss the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Thank you, Colleen. Okay, Jake, please continue.
Okay, as Joanne mentioned, this is a lot line adjustment for 4 parcels, map 5, lot 54, lot 54-1, 56, and 56-3-1. The original approved, or conditionally approved plan had this area as an easement to make drainage, and it's just the inset. For drainage and access and slope grading. The 2 property owners had got together and realized it would be a simpler version if they just did a lot line adjustment. So that's what we're proposing here, is just, it's the same exact area as the conditionally approved easement. It's just now it's going to be transition property, basically. And as with the new sheet that I sent, that I handed out, the inset shows the relocation of the conservation easement up the outer layer of the property boundary.
Is there a trail there?
I'm not.
Not unless you have a hatchet.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. From what the Conservation
It's not a
Commission
defined-
said, it wasn't. It's not very.
Just allows for one of the future.
Yes.
Future use.
But the bottom line is this simplifies things,
Yes, it
which is
does
a good thing.
for sure.
So I understand that your firm is coming back with a revised site plan.
Yes.
Will you, when you do that, if this is approved, will you then show the new?
That will all be, yes,
Okay.
right. Our plan was to get this taken care of first.
Okay.
And then that way they can go through the legal side of it for that, for the lot line adjustment. And then that'll all be shown on the new
Okay,
plan once that's in front of you.
thank you.
Board members have any questions for the applicant? It's a pretty straightforward request.
Straightforward.
Joanne, is there any reason why we shouldn't grant this lot line adjustment in your professional opinion as a leader?
No, it looks fine.
I'm surprised Steve was willing to give up frontage for his lot. 67 feet.
Joanne? a number of years ago, and I'm guessing maybe 8 or 10, there was a plan for the development of 56-3-1.
Yes.
Does this, moving a part of that land to their neighbor, does that intrude on what was desired to be built under that plan?
So I have that plan with me. Are you familiar with this plan, Jake?
Are we,
For the medical office?
Veterinary clinic.
is that the one, which property is that on? Is that for 54 or is that?
56-3-1. That's where a
The
previous
frontage
approval
on
was
Mass
granted
Road.
on that
Oh.
site.
That's an improved one.
I'm not,
It never was, it was never,
It was never,
I guess
was
I'm-
never built, yes.
Was it approved?
it was approved.
That's what I
Are we
said.
talking about the
The
townhomes?
approval must have lapsed.
No,
right?
this isn't, well, this easement here that I'm looking at is an easement for the medical building. It's from, looks like 2008, 2009.
The-
And there's an easement that comes off of Tatro, and then there's another.
Let me clarify, Mr. Chair, I'm talking about an approval for a veterinarian office on that
Yeah.
property fronting Mass Road.
I think that's what they called this. Let me just see here.
But there's somebody else that's gonna come to planning board soon,
This
with
is
something new for that. so-
20-foot wide access easement lines from Mass Road shall be defined only to the southern edge of veterinary clinic parking.
Was the vet clinic parcel 3-1 or just 56?
56-3-1.
That, one, right? Yeah.
Now, my memory says that the rectangle of the proposed building is sufficiently in.
Away from the
Yes, but I'm
setback.
putting in the record, is this giving of land to the abutter, does it, just I'm saying, does it
Change.
impede what was planned to
Well,
be
does it
built?
invalidate the approval?
Well, the
Well,
approval is
It's
not
only
I mean-
expired at this
Yeah.
point.
I'm really
Yeah.
expecting the answer to be no, but I want to put it in. the
This
record.
approval is null and void because
Okay.
it's too old. No
Then-
one's built
okay.
anything on
Then-
it.
So then it's a moot point. So the answer is that approval is null and void.
Thank you.
Okay. Look, if the two owners that own the two lots are good with it and giving up land is their concern, what do we have to say about it? The lot line, it intersects our line at 90 degrees like we like. It's pretty simple. I don't think it has any negative effect on us for any reason that I can see by glancing at it. They address the access for the, access to the conservation access. I don't know what else there is to go over. If somebody can think of something. Well, let's not just look at it all night. We're either gonna act on it or do something.
Well, you're going to open a public hearing.
Oh, yeah. I've tried to get this over with quicker. All right, you open the public hearing, please. Anybody here to speak to this application tonight? Now's your time to get up and speak. I know who the applicants are in the back there, so. All right, you can open and close the public hearing. Thank you, Barbara.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion with the findings of fact that the application conforms to the requirements of the zoning ordinance and development regulations, and it will accommodate for a drainage structure currently shown it exists on a conditionally approved site plan. It will eliminate the need for an easement on that site plan. So I'd recommend, with those findings of fact, I'd move to conditionally approve the plan with the conditions 1 through 7 as noted in the staff recommendation memorandum.
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Joan, what's our next application, please?
The next application is Roadrunner Investments is the owner and Aubuchon Realty Company is the applicant. They are proposing a 10,500 square foot retail building on the corner of Mast Road and Sparkle Drive, next to the car wash. The land is currently vacant, and it consists of 11.89 acres. Now, the site is serviced by public water and sewer. And the remaining land would remain undeveloped for a while until the owner decides what he would like to do with it. There's an access easement provided when the car wash went in for frontage along the road, the right-of-way of Sparkle Drive, and the applicant would lease a portion of map 5, lot 49-1. It's actually a condominium, right? I'm sorry, it's not a lease, it's going to be a condominium.
What's going to be condominium?
The site, so
The two lots are going to be condominium lots?
Correct, yes.
So that way they avoid doing frontage?
Well, they'll have frontage, but the back lot would not have frontage, so that's correct. So it'd all be one.
Does that require a conditional use permit or anything like that?
No, just condominium approval. So they're lacking in some parking.
So there are 2 waiver requests?
It's not actually a waiver. There is a waiver request for the buyer retention
So they just
usage.
want us to consider the alternate parking as is allowed by the
Correct.
rules? Okay. So otherwise, is the application complete, but for given that there's a waiver request?
Yes,
Okay. Is there any regional impact?
no,
And we saw this before, was that a conceptual?
yes it was.
Okay. So we haven't accepted this yet,
No,
previously.
there are a lot of comments.
I did note that.
However, as far as completeness goes, they've provided what they needed to do.
Which is our issue, not theirs.
Right. Barbara, you up?
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the application for map 5 lot 49-1 in regards to the proposed site, noting that there's a waiver request to be considered and no regional impact.
Could you also add that the applicant hopefully will agree to waive the 65-day clock?
And
Is that back? That back?
No,
just
they're-
not,
Oh, is it
yes.
committee up?
Yeah, we agree, and I think we checked that on the application.
Okay.
Okay, so with that condition also.
So motion was made to find a complete, ready review, no regional impact, waiver for acceptance purpose only, and waive the 65-day clock. Who made this, who seconded it?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. So Joanne, you can continue with your introduction if you have anything else you'd like to add to it.
Question for staff before she continues. I noticed that when I reviewed this and saw the comments that there was a recommendation to continue this to the May 23rd or June 13th meeting. And of course, I want to hear from the applicant, but if that's the case, I don't want to get too bogged down in all these individual comments. Has the applicant seen your report and know that you're requesting a
Yes,
continuance?
I sent it over. I think they could give you, a brief
Yeah, no, I do.
overview.
I want that, but I just want to make sure before we get too excited about any details that,
Around board.
Yeah, our expectation, we will touch on it tonight, but we'll come back with updated plans and responses.
okay, all right, thanks.
All right, for the record, your name spelled?
For the record, Matt Bombaci with Bowler Engineering, B-O-M-B-A-C-I. No one's ever gotten that one before.
Okay.
And like,
My name is Michael Sambucetti. I'm the development manager for the Aubuchon Realty Company.
Spell your last name, Michael.
My last name is spelled S-A-M-B-U-C-E-T-I.
awesome. So we were back here, I think it was January for the conceptual, just to get the board's opinion on a few items in particular. I think it was parking and access were the ones we wanted some impact on. Since that date, we've prepared our full design plans, traffic study, drainage report, and obviously filed the site plan application and supporting materials. We filed with DOT, we're going to have to amend that driveway permit, so those materials will be submitted with DOT as well. And we've also received the comments, which we haven't responded to, but we've read through and we'll touch on briefly today. The project proposes a 10,640 square foot retail building, 33 parking spaces, stormwater, landscaping. It proposes to use about a 1 acre piece of the parcel next to the car wash here. Again, as Joanne said, that would be condominiumized to be a shared access driveway down the center here, and then to the land of the rear, nothing at this time, but we made sure that we at least contemplated there will be something there or could be something there. We didn't want to just ignore that fact as part of this because we suspected that would be a question as far as how that's to be accessed, how will utilities be provided to it if it were developed. If you remember from our first conceptual discussion, we kind of brought something similar to this exhibit. The existing Sparkle Court is a T road that stubs off here, and one stop goes to the car wash and one goes to the remaining land. We're not expecting a ton of traffic in our use, which I'll touch upon, but we did want to be considerate of multiple uses coming through to this one intersection, especially if it's a T intersection, which is more or less geared towards 2 uses. So we had designed this shared driveway here, which would serve our development, and then have a stub here where if there ever were any development to the rear would come through there. Rather than have this road do a real sharp kind of zigzag pattern, we wanted to try to curl it through so it really allowed for the majority of traffic to kind of circle through, and then anything that's coming off of that would be under stop control. One comment we got from Scott and the board was, we thought everything was kind of under control, but if there was any way to eliminate the exit out here, would just eliminate one extra conflict point, because we had an exit here with also the exit here of the car wash. We were able to accommodate that. We do have another entrance into the site here, so we made this an in only, so really the traffic coming into this development could turn right in here or come in here, would have to come out here and all the way through rather than conflicting with the car wash traffic.
So while you're on that road discussion,
Yeah.
are you making that Sparkle Lane all the way to the back?
Nope, so I think Sparkle Court is technically just this stub piece here because we're not extending the roadway, but this would be a shared access easement, so this development would have rights to use this driveway, and so would the remaining land to the rear.
So Scott, is there a turning area or hammerhead or something there? What's there now?
Well, currently it is, I would call it a hammerhead. So it's basically paved as a T, and then it just kind of turns into this dirt access to the lot in question. You can see it there. So the pavement just ends, and then there's some trucking company using that site currently to park their tractors in there.
So are we going to have that back when when the design is done for a turning?
That's a private road. That's not a town maintained road. So I don't even know who plows it. I assume it's someone contracted by the car wash currently.
Well, I can only say that it's not a town maintained road now, and somehow this town always ends up maintaining these roads down in the future when they're petitioned by the residents or the businesses to take them over.
I mean, this one, I don't know if the town would ever even
I wouldn't think they'd take
contemplate
Parsons
this
Lane
with
over
that.
either, but we've got it now, so.
It's just a entrance to, businesses.
Never say never, Scott.
I think once it becomes a condominium, like that's not, we don't typically.
That wouldn't be
Yeah.
a legal option, actually.
Okay. As long as
And
that's
not only,
decided.
the other thing about it is that's a DOT maintained section, so our plows aren't really patrolling that section. Obviously, they drive through it to get to other parts of town, but
Well, if it became a town road, they would swing in and swing out, if it ever became a town road. So I'm just looking to the future.
I wouldn't recommend it to the select board anyway.
Okay.
But
Well, I hope I'm old enough to remember when the time comes.
you could curse me
Still
if I
on the
ever
lake,
did.
sitting around in my chair, breathing my oxygen. Okay, continue, please, sir.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So for parking, as we kind of briefly discussed at the conceptual, we would request I guess it's not necessarily a waiver, but it's a request to utilize different traffic data. At the previous conceptual discussion, I had kind of noted we would provide ITE data, but also just anecdotally, our applicant or the owner has quite a bit of experience with these, and they know how many spaces they want. They don't want to provide less than they need, and retail use tends to be pretty varying depending on a square foot basis. So different retail uses could have much different parking needs depending on that specific retail use. That said, the traffic consultant did also prepare a or a parking generation analysis based on the use, and basically came up with 30 peak parking demand in the weekday and 32 on the weekend, so we have 33, so less than that. So just we had obviously the technical background plus also, you know, our experience with similar developments. Additionally, we've been working with the owner or the who will retain the remainder of the land relative to this area through here. We show those as 13 shared parking spaces. We don't think there's much, if at all, chance that this development would ever need to use those, but we're proposing that as part of the condominium, they would have the right to use it as overflow parking in the event they ever did need to use them. Again, we don't think we needed them, but wanted to provide a little extra.
Who would run them? The condominium, the condos in the back that you're gonna build later, or the site here might use them?
We would allow this site to have the right to use them as overflow in the event they ever needed it, but they would be, I guess, primarily for any development to the rear.
And what are you short on parking spaces?
So on the 1 per 200 square feet, it's, I think it's 54 is required, and we're requesting 33, so short of 21.
So what does that require, Joanne, per our rules and regulations?
So if they can prove using ITP data that they don't need as many based on the type of use, then they can come back and the board can actually approve that, but they have to have, you know, information to.
Have we ever used ITT data at this?
We have, since I've been here, I remember at least once or
Okay,
twice.
because I don't remember ever having this discussion prior. I guess I missed that.
I had one question about that. Does that include employees?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah. But we can respond formally to that comment.
Okay.
To that comment, but yeah.
Would those,
I just brought it up because it was one of my comments, but since we were on the conversation.
would those spots be paved?
They wouldn't be paved initially, because we would want to leave a little flexibility for the owner in the back to maybe shift them a foot, depending on what their development would
Well,
be.
you're showing striping. You can't stripe the dirt.
Yeah, I guess they look like striping. They're more just delineated line work.
Let's continue.
Yeah, no problem. So one other comment on parking is we know the zoning has recently been changed to 20-foot parking spaces, and we show 18.5 for the old requirement. We also have an increased driveway width, so 28 feet. We have a landscape island, and we have a 7-foot sidewalk, which is maybe a little bigger than we need. So we can accommodate that if needed. I think our preference would be to keep the extra driveway width, just to better delineate the space. That said, I'm seeing a shaking of the head no.
Regulations have a number.
Yep.
Keep the number.
And I don't think I saw a waiver mechanism, so we expect to revise the plan accordingly for that. And then one last comment is snow storage. I know I remember watching a hearing before the one we were at, and snow storage I know was important to this board, and somehow it didn't quite make it onto the site plan. I know we looked at it, so we'll make sure when we update, we include all the snow storage areas and be prepared to talk about them.
You'll have that at a future meeting?
Yep, yeah, absolutely. So again, we did provide a traffic study. The project or the retail use is a very low traffic generator, relatively speaking, to commercial uses, less than 50 in the AM and Saturday peak hours. That said, the Goffstown regulations require a traffic study, and also with DOT, we spoke to them. And although our use doesn't really require one, combined with the nearby car wash, they just asked us to provide one. So we prepared one and submitted with the application.
Have you applied for that driveway permit yet?
We've sent it and we haven't heard anything back. We
Okay.
expect it's probably going to be a few
So
months.
the assistant district engineer has changed positions, so I think they're probably backlogged a little more. Was it Ryan Worsman that you were in contact with?
That's who I spoke with. I haven't spoken with him
Yeah,
since.
he's not in that position anymore, unfortunately, so they are likely understaffed, and that's why you haven't heard anything.
I think when I spoke to Ryan, he sounded pretty stressed out as well at
Oh,
that time
okay.
too. So
Yeah, he moved up in position at
We
DOT
can-
from what I
We
understand.
can
Sorry.
move on now.
So the traffic study notes no notable impacts to the operation of the area. Again, it's a low trip generator. We did receive a few comments that Scott will pass those along to the traffic consultant, make sure that we address those. And like I said, we filed with NHDOT, so they'll be reviewing that and providing comments as they see appropriate.
Does Scott have a copy of that study?
I believe so.
Yeah, I reviewed it.
You do?
I have
Okay.
comments on it. Yeah, for
Because
some reason.
It says traffic report needed.
Yeah, so the one I sent you was that it said traffic report underlined and then went to 23, and I don't know how that missed. And then it's like your numbering switches to letters. It's not important, but traffic report needed was just supposed to be the header to my traffic report comments.
Oh, okay.
So number 24, and then it switches to letters for some reason, but So if the board.
That's Joanne's new plan for dealing with traffic studies.
So I did speak to the district engineer, and I told him I had a concern with left turns. And so I don't know if you're familiar with TRB's left turn warrant analysis tool that they have. So I put your traffic numbers in there, and the result was that a left turn lane is warranted. I spoke to Rich Radwanski, is that his-
Radwanski.
Radwanski, who's the district engineer, and
So
just
so on the northbound traffic on 114, it's gonna require a left turn lane in
the
middle?
west, I believe it's westbound.
Well, whatever,
Yeah.
heading to the village.
Yeah, and just over the phone with him, I told him the numbers from your plan, and just hearing the numbers, he was pretty sure that you would need a left turn lane. So,
Especially if you're gonna develop the rear as well.
yeah. So I think that's a big piece for you to understand, because there's obviously costs and things associated with that, and other impacts. So I'm sure DOT will be in touch with you about that.
Yep, yeah, I appreciate the heads up, and I don't want to speak too much about it, but I understand what you're saying, and we'll run it past their traffic engineer too, just to make
Okay.
sure they're aware of that conversation.
Just in follow-up to that, can somebody check those numbers with the traffic study that was done by the car wash?
I did. The
Did you?
traffic study from the car wash said it was gonna be minimal left turns, and what's
All the
actually
time.
out there is, what is existing is in the 20s, right? The left turns in the peak hours, I got the numbers in front
That's
of
all
me
right, it's
somewhere,
not-
But they were like 3 times as many left turns than what the study said there will be.
Oh, funny you mentioned that earlier about traffic studies.
It is, they do use industry-approved methods, which is all I can,
That's
when
all you
I
can
do
use.
reviews,
That's
that's
all you
all I
can-
can review against. And unless these methods change, I can't really comment more strict, so.
So I'm
I mean,
looking
we can poke them and question them more, but.
I'm looking at your small plan set, and I don't see any template or movements for tractor trailers on the site, proving to us that they can enter the site and make it to the loading dock. Usually that's shown on a plan.
They just did
Vehicle
fire
movement.
trucks somewhere.
Well, fire trucks, they don't bring goods to the store, tractor trailers bring the goods. I'm wondering how that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I think it's in there, but let me pull it up just so I don't lie to you.
As long as it's somewhere in a plan set before we're done with you guys.
Yep, yeah, so I think it's something, we actually stick it in detail sheets, because we just kind of hide it in. Not hide it, but, you know, out of the
Here's a
meeting,
different
we're
word.
trying to-
903?
So the top one's.
That little tiny thing, we're gonna need a bigger picture than that.
I have one here.
I mean, this set under here is, you've got a full set underneath.
As long as it's not another inset. As long as you can read it and you're good with it, that's all. Okay.
Yep, yeah, so for the truck movements, we use the Goffstown fire truck, which turns a lot easier than the WB67 delivery truck, which is really the biggest delivery truck you'll generally see, so that's
You'll
what we.
just have to include that in your data.
Yep, yeah, we'll make sure that's clear.
And you don't show loading docks here, the access. Everything is gonna be put onto the ground and wheeled into the building, is that how?
Yeah,
the
sure.
store's gonna be fed?
So there's a concrete loading area here, but it won't be a raised platform, so it'll be loaded at ground level on the concrete pad and brought into the side of the building.
Okay.
Here.
Usually we see loading docks. Board members, do you have questions for this applicant? Anybody wanna talk about what the building looks like, the exterior finish?
Yeah, I can jump to that out. A drainage report, we provided one, if you want to talk about it, I'll skip it for now, but happy to talk about it if you need to. For the building, we did provide an architectural elevation. Tried to focus mostly on the corner we thought was most visible, so the corner that kind of faces the car wash, or that front corner and that front side facing the roadway, so hardy board siding, some accents, window features, and mansard roof along that specific corner, so that corner closest to Mass Road. I know we did receive a comment, said maybe it was a little bland. We usually kind of stick to.
A lot bland.
Yeah, a lot bland, yeah. We usually stick to earthy color.
Can you have a blue roof? You can match the car with the car wash.
Yeah.
What are those dark brown rectangles? Are those windows?
They'd be like window features, so they'd be like a boarded, like a window shutter type look, but it wouldn't be an actual window.
It's a fake window.
Exactly, yeah.
I think it's ugly.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't take any offense to that. Like I said, the architect usually sticks to kind of, I would call them earthy colors, but I think calling them bland and ugly is also fair too, depending on which way you look at it. So I know the applicant's not super sold on any particular color, so if there was a kind of a more dynamic color scheme or something the board would prefer, I think we'd be open to it.
Will they have a sign on the building, do you know?
They will, yeah, they would have signage on this front side for sure, and then I think maybe on this side as well. On the
So you mentioned hardy board, that's on the surfaces that people can see. What's on the back of the building?
So the back by the loading door and the back facing the property, to the other side would be kind of a corrugated metal type siding.
So it's going to be metal siding?
On those two sides, yep.
I'm not concerned about the colors. Bland color is fine, but I think the very boxy look of the building, and especially that side elevation that is still going to be very visible from, you know, traffic coming from the other direction. So what, with the metal panel, that side elevation, I'm concerned that really doesn't have any treatment at all, and you're going to see all the rooftop mechanical equipment coming from that view. And even your, you know, kind of dressed up side, I just, the very flat roof, I think that there could be maybe a little bit more effort on the architecture to give it a little bit more character.
And Tim, if I can, I would agree with Colleen. We've been fairly consistent with other applicants that it needs to look more like a New England architectural style. We were that way with Starbucks, it comes to mind, that was a recent one, but others as well. You know, pitched roofs, dormers, something that makes it...
Starbucks was in here a few times on their roof.
Yeah, they have. And it's much better than what they started with.
We understand
And
that you-
admittedly, this is a bigger roof.
We understand
Yes.
that you have to have flat places to put mechanicals
Yeah.
on the roof. What applicants have done in the past is they've sort of boxed them in or disguised them with other, well, you showed your mansard roof on the front corner and the side facing the street, you have your mansard roof. I don't know, think about maybe lengthening it or something, making it longer.
And then I guess as far as like the color schemes, I know the board has previously mentioned they like the car wash kind of look and colors. Is the Starbucks another good example if we wanted to pass a couple different options to the architect?
Yes.
We're not telling you what colors to put there.
Yeah.
I think that
No,
blue roof
please.
suggestion was more of a comment than it was an actual.
Fair enough.
Not a suggestion.
I don't know, I didn't want blue on Northeast Sheet Metal, and they did something else, so.
Tim, and if I could also comment, the Conservation Commission discussed this last night, and I have some of their comments that I'd be happy to share with you. We voted in favor to follow forward comments to the planning board, show snow storage on the plan.
Yeah.
Commission has concerns with regards to traffic in a two-lane road, and should there be turning lanes. Let's see, they recommend native plants to be planted at the site. You know, it's a very droughty site, sandy soils, it would be difficult to establish some plant species there. We need to make sure that whatever plant species go in there are drought tolerant and can survive in sandy soils. And they would suggest requiring a performance standard for a specified period of time, like 3 years, to ensure plantings will survive and require the applicant owner to replant as necessary.
Actually, Collis, our plans require that those plants be maintained for the life of the project.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
putting a 3-year limit on it is
I understand.
short-sighted.
It was more towards the nature of the species of the plants and the nature of the soil, the fact that it's very droughty, very sandy, difficult to get a lot of species to thrive there, so.
We
that
don't,
was more-
we don't require, but we often recommend that applicants that have a big landscaping package, that they're gonna put a lot of money into it, consider an irrigation system
Yep.
to keep
Yep.
them fresh and living rather than
And that
you're
was-
getting called back before the board in a year
Yeah.
because you have to change 14 or 15 or 20 trees
And that
that
was part of the
died.
Conservation Commission's recommendation as well, to consider an irrigation plan.
I don't want to speak too much, but I think an irrigation system would be part of our intention.
Okay, good. David, please.
Joanne, you got comments from every department in town. However, you did not get comments from the front abutter to this property, which is the park department. So I'd like to speak on their behalf.
Wait a minute, I'm having a
I
little,
would like to speak on that.
I'm having a little issue with the fact that you are a rail trail guy, and this is rail trail, so I'm a little concerned that you're gonna press it a little hard, so please,
Oh.
temper your
I will
stuff.
try. Both of the abutters to the left and right of this proposed site have agreed to put down the appropriate nit pack for the tread of the rail trail and to loam all of the area to either side of that rail trail up to your property line. So I'm sure that's very good that they put the nit pack down, put a loam left and right of the trail. Because essentially that is what the public sees as your front yard. So I would be very pleased if there was a condition saying that that the applicant would contribute the nit pack for the rail trail and loam and seating of that 201-foot length.
I'm really starting to, I think we're way in over it right now. Because you went to a TRC meeting, didn't you? And didn't I read in the TRC meeting that a certain amount of money was negotiated?
No,
there was no value. I don't
This
know
is-
what
this is
we're
way
referring
over the
to.
edge.
Okay, we need to sort of get back. David made a comment, it's noted.
Okay, that's the end of it.
And that's, where it's at, so.
Thank you for
I think the
interfering.
applicant is aware of some discussion similar that occurred at the conceptual.
At the TRC meeting it was discussed.
We don't have anything from the TRC in front of us. I'm recalling the conceptual hearing, so.
This is not a conceptual any longer, this is why I'm
I understand.
stopping it.
Can I ask on the alternate parking arrangements? I know you did the calculations on ITE, but based on your other stores, is 33 spaces realistically sufficient for other locations that are operating?
Yeah, we've anecdotally visited a bunch of their different locations for different types of the retail uses or the dry good uses we would have. In 30, they've never had a parking problem. In fact, it just never come up. That said, we didn't want it to be take our word for it, so which is why we provided the technical data. But we've also, they're obviously very concerned they have enough parking for their use. So we need to do that analysis as well.
How many safety entrances do you have here in the building? I only see like one egress in the receiving building.
Yep. Yeah, there would be 3 egresses. There would be the main entrance at the front corner. There would be a main entrance here for customers. There'd be a secondary emergency access over here that led up to the sidewalk, and a third access to the back with the potential loading area.
How many stores does this applicant own?
How many properties?
50 plus. Yeah.
Are there any around this area?
Let's see. Closest might be Hillsborough, New Hampshire.
Hillsborough?
I can get that to you.
Okay.
So the fire department comments are simply the corrections for the dumpster pads?
Yes.
They're good with the access to the 2 sides of the building only. They don't need any other access to the building other than the front and the back corner.
That's the
They've
only-
commented?
That's the only thing they commented on.
Thank you. Want to make sure I asked.
You didn't receive any comments from sewer?
So we did speak to
Corey?
thank you, Stephen. We spoke to him today. We currently show a doghouse manhole on the thing, which we can't do apparently. I think we
Yeah.
misunderstood them the first time. So
Okay.
what Corey suggested was that we come off this manhole here with a new manhole, run it back and through, which we'll do. He has our application, but he didn't want to put us on the sewer commission agenda until we had the updated plan that he thought would be acceptable. So
Okay.
we're going to send that update to him and hoping to get on the sewer commission for early May.
Okay.
We've also spoken with the water district in May 21st. We're going to meet with them as well.
All right, I'm glad I asked that because when I saw the plans, I knew Corey doesn't doesn't allow dog houses, so I had called him.
Yeah, no.
I assumed he was going to submit comments, but I guess not.
Yeah, I think he's been very sick. He had mentioned when he called me back today, he's been sick as a dog for the past week, which makes me comment.
I just have to ask, was he in the doghouse? There was just so much stuck up.
Doghouse
I was just like,
Doghouse
really?
manhole.
I understand, but I couldn't let it go.
Do you wanna know what one is?
No. Joanne, so this applicant is coming back. Is there other questions or things that you think the applicant needs to talk to us about in order to revise the plan to address the comments?
I
other
don't think
than
any
to-
of mine. My big one that I wanted to present to all of you tonight was the traffic concerns that I had. The other ones are, much
Just more
technical
work
stuff.
out.
Yeah.
Joanne, if they're gonna request a change in the parking requirements, that, by even with their documents, does that require a waiver request?
No, just approval by planning.
Are we setting ourselves up for a lot of reduced parking from applicants because they come up with some official document? Because we have numbers in our standards which we have really stuck to for a long time.
The numbers are very old, and Scott and I have had discussions about the possibility of looking at that in the future and modifying it, because there is a lot of excess parking in certain places in town, certain businesses. Shaw's Plaza is a great example of that, where the parking is never used.
Well, it's also quite empty, but
Yeah,
I do
true.
agree that, so
Well,
I've looked at
there's
other
more
towns and there are
tenants
some,
now.
like, smaller numbers per square foot and stuff for different uses than.
Well, I'd be
we have.
interested in knowing if their requested number is in conjunction with some of the other towns.
I didn't check that.
No.
I did.
It would be
Okay.
worth knowing.
It's roughly one space for every 200 square feet in other towns as well. It's pretty common.
You do know we acted some new zoning that allows for small car spaces for compact
Yeah,
cars?
I think it's over 100 spaces before that's
Yeah,
triggered, right?
yeah.
Oh, there's a minimum?
99, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize. Trigger number. All right, sorry for that. Do you have any questions for us that you need answered so that you can move forward with coming back with finality?
No, I don't think anything in particular. I think our game plan moving forward will be to obviously respond to all the comments and provide the updated plans. Also, at some point, we do need to file a subdivision application for the condominium. We've been negotiating that with the owner and kind of have it framed in, but we'll probably formalize that with the surveyor and pull that together because I know the board will want to see that at some point before construction starts.
That has to go to legal too.
Yep, yep. So I don't know if you'll need that before this process ends up, or certainly before any type of construction.
You're not gonna get your approval unless we have the condo docs squared away.
Yep, so that'll be.
You might get a conditional approval.
When you come back, you can do it all at the same time in one application.
You might get a conditional approval, but you won't be able to build anything until it's all the, yeah. And you're gonna meet the landscaping requirements as set forth?
Yep, yeah, we do. So it was a lot of trees and shrubs, to be honest. We had a little trouble
Yeah.
fitting them on there, but yeah, we met all the requirements.
Good.
And we're going to adjust them per conservation's comments.
And
Barbara,
the
did you have a
lighting
question?
plan had some issues with meeting the requirements.
For light leaving the site?
Yeah,
We'll
for
have to make
the
adjustments
side
to
lot
fix that.
line.
Yeah, we'll adjust. We use all dark sky compliant lighting, LED, low energy efficient. We did see the one location where it was a little over 0.2, and we'll just tweak the lighting in that location.
Do we have any concerns? Is there landscaping on the back side between you and the proposed trailer dealership? Is there anything on that back line, or is that just wide open back there?
Yeah, we haven't proposed any landscaping back at that side.
And that's not our purview to separate these properties with any kind of... Okay, as long as we're acting accordingly.
I don't think he has anything on that side
All right,
Question?
any other things, board members? Barbara?
As part of the package, you have an April 4th letter from Bowler, who did the studies for you. And the April 4th letter has to do with, you call it waiver request, but one is the parking, which technically isn't a waiver, and the other one is the bioretention, which I have read that there's no objection to, so I'm not assuming anything. But I looked, I mean, your traffic impact was just based on the ITE data, it looked like. So I just heard that you had manage 50 similar properties or something like, I don't know. what I-
They're all retail, but it's a range of, I mean.
So I guess you meet the ITE, but in order to get buy-in for this lower parking thing, maybe somebody could put some additional information in regards to other locations that you operate and what the parking there has been in your experience as compared to, because you might as well use that data that you have to support the ITE. I mean, I'm assuming that you're not requesting reduced parking because it's going to cause you a problem, but if you had other anecdotal to go along with the ITE, it might be helpful,
Yeah, we'd be happy to take a look at some, like, just point out a few different locations and
Yeah.
what they typically see.
which would be similar to the traffic that's going to be generated by this location. Okay, that would be helpful. Because I'm hearing Manchester is going to not requiring any parking for buildings in certain circumstances. So it's like the world has, the pendulums continue to swing. Can you imagine?
Is that the adding,
Yeah.
that's adding the extra apartment per the zoning regulations?
Yeah,
and
and getting
not
rid
requiring
of
any
it.
additional parking?
Yeah.
I think I read that.
And I think they're getting rid of it for some buildings.
Okay.
Don't they have corporate offices on Route 2 somewhere in Massachusetts?
In Westminster.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, get us the address of the place in Hillsborough that you have your building so we can all, if anybody happens to be in Hillsborough. we can
Yeah,
look at it.
it's an older format store. It's right next to the Shaw's. The Shaw's, Dunkin' Donuts, Overtime Hardware.
I think 146 West Main, but that's off total memery, so.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice
And-
little
yeah,
drive
West
through
Main.
Deer.
What is this business that occupies the building?
That's an Overtime Hardware.
Overshan?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is that what this is?
Not necessarily, no. Until we have a permit, you can't really get a lease, but there's a number of retailers that we've worked with, some that we haven't, that are very interested in splitting this location, so we're very comfortable with this.
Don't come back for a drive-up lane.
We definitely will not be doing that, no. Retail's changing, not changing that much.
You have to revise your whole plan.
No, yeah, that's not what we're looking to do.
Okay.
You're gonna move forward.
Board members, everybody have our questions all out of their selves and we can move this to a date certain? Do you have a requested date you'd like to come back for? I mean, how long is it gonna take you to get ready to come back here?
I guess my concern, I just don't want to waste the board's time by continuing to a date, and then if we're not ready, you all have to come in to continue it.
Well, here's the problem. If we don't continue it to a date certain, you're gonna have to re-notify.
Okay, yeah.
Which is
so-
an expense for you. If you go to a date certain that you think you can be ready by, we will plug you in, and I'm not,
Why don't we do the June 13th, because that gives them a solid 4 weeks to work on everything. They've got a couple of boards they need to go to.
Is that adequate?
That should be plenty of time, for sure. Yeah. Does that work for you?
Yes.
June 13th?
Yes. That may be plenty of time. Let no applicant ever.
I'll send somebody
You
else.
never want to be the applicant
You don't have
promising to
anybody
have
here
everything.
complaining, obviously, about you, because they would have been here tonight to voice their public opinion. So
I'll make a motion to
I'm
continue.
No,
not
you need a
recommending
public-
that you apply for a continuance, but if you're not ready, you just have to let the staff know, and we do move people around.
Okay, cool, excellent.
That having been said, I'll make a motion to continue this to the June
For the
13th.
Public hearing.
first,
Oh, I'm
if there's any
sorry,
public comment.
sorry, yep, like
Well, I will do it. We can move
stepping on Tim's,
I know, thank you. Okay, we're gonna open the public hearing. Anybody here to speak? Earl? Okay. Okay, we'll close the public hearing.
for it, approve it.
Time to wake up, Earl. You're
Yes.
It's like, just let me get up there.
now Tim, I'll make a
Meeting to let
motion.
you run the meeting.
Tim, now I think it's appropriate to make a motion to continue the June 13th meeting.
Second.
Brian? Second?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so motion to continue this to June 13th. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming in.
No, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Okay. Last application of the night.
Joanne, this next one, you've got in your notes that we found complete and no regional impact, but this is a new application,
That is
right?
not
that-
correct. Yes,
okay,
it
so we
is.
do need to,
Yes. I'll just put staff recommends.
Tim, before we get into this,
Yes.
I need to disclose that I am the owner, manager of Adams Environmental, which is a New Hampshire LLC, and I work on occasion, although not on this project, with Sanford Engineering, jointly on projects. They do the engineering, I do the environmental work. I want to disclose that. If you think that's inappropriate and you want me to recuse myself, I'd be happy to do that.
Board members? Are you gonna benefit from this application financially?
Not this particular
You know,
application.
Is that not correct, Barbara?
No,
It's-
it is correct, but Collis brought it up, so I don't, frankly, being in the consulting business, I don't know where that puts you on a planning board, quite honestly, because arguably, every applicant looks to you as someone that they could hire. It actually, did you discuss this with the board when
No.
you got appointed to this?
But it's specific to this one because Sanford Engineering is the agent presenting the project.
I understand that, but the point is,
So-
if you're actively doing private surveying, every applicant could potentially hire you,
I'm
right?
as retired as I'm going to be retired. So I'm not getting any more retired than I am.
Are you gonna disclose future conflicts? Please. I would say
Yes.
that we would accept your,
Okay, that's fine.
your statement to step down.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, did you ask to step down? Because I'm fine. Usually there's a disclosure, and then it's like, does anyone, is
Right.
that an issue?
That's
And it
what I
certainly is
asked
not
her.
an issue. We don't have anything currently,
Right,
so,
we do not. Certainly not this one.
so, I guess,
Okay.
and I expect you'll have some report from last night too, or,
Yeah, we have.
so,
Yeah, we know.
I would hope that we could get all of your knowledge at the table.
Happy to stay.
Yes, oh, okay.
Hold on a second before you get started. Anyway, I gotta find it. I'm looking for a plan. Got this giant thing under there. Where'd this come from?
Oh, I don't, they're like site plan, they're
Like,
boundary plan,
you
it's
gotta
some,
be
it's a
good for
4-foot
blind
sheet
people
of
like me, I
paper.
can read it. Okay, Joanne, could you please give us a overview of what we're looking at?
Okay. This property is located on Page Hill Road. It is owned by Roger Blood, and he's been before you previously with some other things he had done on this property. He's now looking to do a 2-lot subdivision. The parcel consists of 5.17 acres with a private well and private septic. And they would like to divide off, as you can see on the plan, where the new lines would be. And the existing barn, there's 2 existing barns, but the larger of the existing barns would go with the new lot. And then at some point, they would build a house on there. And you can see they've included the 80 by 100 shape for where the house could go. That dashed line that runs through there at one time, that was part of a driveway, but that was eliminated when he did the last subdivision. So it shows it going through the 80 by 100 area, but that line is blocked off at the end, so it's not in use any longer. So they would be adding a new driveway for that lot. The zoning requires a minimum of 2 acres, and both lots have enough. One is 2.4 acres and the other is 2.7.
Scott?
They submitted a drainage study, they had some BMPs on site. I had no issues or concerns with the drainage report or the proposed drainage. Yeah, the driveway, it kind of has that turn to it, but fire didn't have issue with it, and that's the big concern I would have with a driveway with a turn in it like that, so. No major concerns with me, I have some very minor comments.
What were you saying about the driveway, the fact that it comes in and makes a left-hand turn?
Just that turn, yeah, I think fire had no comment, so that would
It's only 150 feet to
Yeah,
the
it's a
front
nice,
of the house.
it's a short one, so.
And the profile shows that they can achieve a 10% grade.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, I had no major concerns with it.
Barbara?
First, I have two things. One, have we accepted this application, and is it complete, and does it have any regional
Yeah,
impact?
we're back to that.
It is complete and it has no regional
getting late.
impact.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to accept this application is complete. Were there any waiver requests, Joanne?
No, there are no waivers.
Motion made by Barbara, second by Colleen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, so on that last point that was just made, where I finally kept it moving. Fire department, no comments. Is it no comments or no comments received? Because I noticed police department, you said no comments received.
He told me he had no comments. Fire department. Police department, I didn't receive anything. So if it's,
Okay, so I wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that there was a reason, that
Yeah.
one word, so you actually talked to fire department and he
they
said-
sent me an email and
Okay.
said they had no comments.
Okay, good. Anybody else have anything for staff?
I will add that last night the Conservation Commission briefly discussed this one as well. It seems pretty simple on its face, but then one of the members said, well, wait a minute, there's some drainage structures on here. There's a basin, there's some culverts, there's some ditches. What is all of this? And we weren't able to get a good handle on it, so the Conservation Commission is going to request a presentation from the applicant.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sure.
So the applicant wasn't there, you just
Right.
reviewed the plan? Okay.
Right, exactly. And it seems pretty straightforward on its face, but
And you're speaking as a Conservation Commission
Correct.
member right now?
correct.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? We'll ask Earl to identify himself and please begin.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Earl Sanford of Sanford Surveying Engineering. Kind of playing the part of the weary caboose for hopefully the final presentation tonight. But yes, I think we've already described, it's a 5-acre parcel. I think Mr. Blood had aspirations that it would be sold, kind of keeping all the farm together. I think one of the issues with the old house is that the ceilings are very small, and several prospective buyers were like, no, that wouldn't work. So he's had to look at other ways to get the value out of the property that he'd hoped for. So this was the solution. He came back to us. So we have created a second lot, made sure there was ample space. So what you're seeing here is the existing conditions plans. We were here a year ago to subdivide this lot off, this 5-acre lot. So so it's been a year, but this is the lot that we had subdivided off. If we could have looked in the crystal ball, we would have done it at that time. But again, that's just the nature of how this sometimes works. It was greater than 5 acres, so it had the ability, both frontage area and everything, to support a 2-lot subdivision. This is one of the conditions that was presented was that if we did anything further, we had asked for a waiver for wetland because we had it from an old Holden plan, and so the condition at that point was anything you do further, you need to get a wetland scientist out there. So Tim Ferverter went out to mark specifically where the wetland was in the basically 2 or 3 locations. So it's minimal, and I did, after I heard the comments, I did trace in the Holden wetland from the above there's a complex that all works its way through a culvert system and a ditch system that comes and feeds out into the road. But that's none of the drainage, that's not the drainage from what we're doing. That's from a previously subdivided parcel.
What about the piece on the left there that you pointed at, it comes down and it goes into the corner of the proposed lot corner?
Yeah.
Where does that go then?
Well, it is very flat, but if I look at the contours, it appears that everything pretty much migrates.
So from the left side of the page, it migrates to the right side of the page? It doesn't come onto the property?
Correct, it doesn't come down through
Okay, I
the
just want to make sure
property.
that I was reading it correctly.
Yeah. And that's what, I mean, we would have been more than happy to present at the Conservation Commission if we'd known that there was issues, but it was so minimal, the small piece there, and then what's coming down through there, which was in the last subdivision that we did as well. That was noted. So that's just the same thing with contours. We did make sure there was proper site distance. We did a driveway profile to make sure that we could stay 10% or less. And then this is the drainage that we did. You already discussed a little bit of the hook. There's an existing rock wall that we were trying to avoid blasting into. So that's, and we did work with that. So originally it was even a little tighter because we wanted to keep it away from the wall, and then realized that we needed to enhance the ability to turn a truck into that. So again, on this side of the line, that's all existing conditions. So we're not, well, I say it's all existing. We did, because the existing septic system is within the well radius, we designed another septic system and got it approved with the state. So it has an approved septic system there. I have a conceptual one here because both the house, we know the driveway's got we're asking for the curb cut there, but we have not a solid, things may be different with the house, but we've shown a basin here to mitigate stormwater, another kind of a plunge pool depression here to help, and then a berm just to keep it, to direct the water into the pond, then with an outlet level spreader before it goes into the road system. We've done the calculations to say that we're holding back more water than the pre-development condition, so that we've mitigated those issues. So yeah, it's very simple. I was trying to think if there's some way we could entertain a conditional approval possibly for conservation, working with them, but that's up to the board. We just assumed that there was so little wetland, no wetland impact is proposed with this, so, and everything that we're doing is considerable distance away, even from the existing that comes through, goes across the road, and it's all in front of the existing developed lot, so. I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to hold you up. I think we've done what's needed to make sure it's viable. It passes all the criteria of your ordinances, and doesn't need waivers. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Board members? Barbara?
Is this a plan that I'm having a recollection over a stone wall and an old?
Yes, this is the stone wall right here, and they've blocked off. And actually, this road is pretty much grown in now. It's pretty grassed over, but it's the old farm road that came through,
right?
And it's been blocked off, so that's a non-issue. So the proposed house lot was in here for this lot.
Okay, was
and
that what it was?
We were going to do an easement
Right,
across,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
we dropped all that. So
Okay.
we're in compliance with everything that the board wanted on that. So, but yes,
I
that's
just couldn't picture where the farm road was. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of level presentation of the Conservation Commission probably would have allayed their concerns. But as Earl said, and as you can see, it kind of just flows down across the landscape and concentrates down in that corner, so.
Earl, do you show on the plan somewhere how the driveway in front of the existing residence is terminated prior to the new proposed property line?
Right now, it kind of is maintained to this turnaround.
All right.
And then it's kind of a grassed area, or it's kind of so little used that we're, I mean, we're showing it, and you can drive on it because it's got a good base, but it is green, or patchy green right now. And, I mean, our proposal would be to leave that to the discretion of neighbors. If that guy doesn't like that, he can block it. If this guy doesn't like it, he can block it. Where I grew up, we had a barway to each of our two neighbors, and we loved as kids to be able to run through those barways and bike through those barways. And
I mean, it was a topic of a big discussion at the prior meeting, and Barbara brought it up.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask you if you show that driveway being discontinued onto the proposed lot.
It would not be a driveway.
Well, it's drawn as a driveway on the plan every time it
Correct.
shows up
It'll
there.
be discontinued as a driveway. I'm hoping we wouldn't have to put big boulders on it. That's all I'm saying.
Obviously, let the neighbors work it out.
Yeah.
Board members, questions for the applicant? I'm gonna remember this one. I'll have a public hearing. Earl, you can just hang on to yourself there for a minute. We're gonna open the public hearing at this time. I've forgotten all three applications prior. So I'm gonna open the public hearing at this time. Anybody who wants to speak, now's your chance. No one wants
I
to
think
speak?
he's in favor.
I'm gonna close the public hearing.
I'm also on a butter now, too.
Okay, so we're taking care of the public hearing. Does this board want to act conditionally on this tonight, or do we want to have some more discussion?
I'm okay acting conditionally on
Yeah.
Conservation Commission, okay.
How do we do that, though,
We-
if we say that, because, that it go back to the Conservation Commission for
Yeah, we-
review and comment?
We conditionally approve the application based on the Conservation Commission not having any problems with the plan as presented.
Okay.
That sum it up,
And
Colin?
engineering's reviewed it and finds that
Yeah, and
It's not gonna
so
change.
he also, I mean, these are presented as conceptual as well, so
Right.
like,
Yeah.
if, I envision, since the approved plan shows some sort of BMPs on here, so say someone comes in and wants a longer driveway and a house in a different spot, we're gonna make them put BMPs somewhere. That's the way we did the last one, next door to this one. So, because they're big lots, so I could see someone wanting to put the house somewhere else, so. But yes, their numbers were fine. I didn't have any problem with them.
So you're saying that if they decide they want to relocate the house and put a longer driveway in, that will fall under DPW scrutiny for the driveway permit?
Yeah.
And then next thing it goes to the building department for setbacks and different things like that, right?
Yep, yeah.
As far as the septic area goes, Earl, did you do test pits, or is that a proposed area that test pits have not been?
No, we did test pits, we did do test pits to make sure.
So is it fairly safe that the septic will end up there regardless where the house goes?
I mean,
Unless you want to.
unless they do more test pits.
Right.
But, when I do a concept, I try to say what would be the best fit for this lot. And, but you're absolutely right. Someone may have some big vision. They may want to tear the barn down and put a McMansion or something, I can't look into the future.
But it's downhill to the septic area now, which is all they need to worry
Correct.
about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And viability is proved.
Okay. Anybody else?
Motion to approve, making the findings of fact that it meets the requirements for a lot line adjustment according to our ordinance and regs and.
Motion to conceptually approve or approve?
Conditionally.
Conditionally.
I'm going to add a condition for approval, which will be number 18, that the plan as presented receives a positive recommendation from the Conservation Commission. And incorporating numbers 1 through 17 as proposed by staff.
And what were the numbers again, Barbara?
Well, staff conditions are 1 through 17, so number 18 is a positive recommendation or approval from Conservation Commission.
Would be a recommendation.
Right, because it's not, it's an advisory board, that's why I said recommendation.
Are there any redundant approvals in here? Scott? Suggestions for approvals, any redundant ones that we can take out? Sometimes you,
Can I ask a question?
Earl?
I just want to, I know it's been characterized as a lot line adjustment as opposed to a subdivision. And so I just didn't want that to be misconstrued in terms of what I'm getting approved.
What are you saying you're getting approved?
Barbara,
I'm
your
getting a-
findings of fact, you just say it meets the requirements for a subdivision.
Right.
Rather than, well,
Oh, I see what you're talking about, yes, yeah.
And then I mean, as far as conservation commissions, I'd like it put that we could address any issues they have, or something. And some conservation commissions in some towns absolutely won't give you a positive. They'll just give you a no comment or whatever, so I'm not, I don't think that's a worry here, but I'd rather have it be that they don't have a negative comment about it or something, because some of them just, it's
Now
their
you're
policy.
completely confused the whole issue.
No, I understand what he's talking about. Let me see what they did at the meeting last night. Depending on it, the recommendation from the Conservation Commission that they have no issues or concerns.
Does that satisfy you?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not asking them to say this is a great project, I just.
Yeah, it's gonna save the plan.
Yeah, I know, but so what he's saying is when he goes back, he doesn't want to end up with some conditions, so we're talking about it, what they normally do.
so I'll second Barbara's motion if no one has it.
Scott, I want to say anything here about setting
Bounds?
bounds on here. Whether you want them to be granite bounds or what you want here. Because normally you recommend a.
So, reviewing the plans, they have granite at the road and the rest are iron pin.
Number
or-
6 discusses it.
Right.
Monumentation has been properly set.
Yeah, so no, what I'm saying is I reviewed the plans and they have, so at the roadway, they have the, the legend and it shows granite bounds at the road, which is what we require. There's only one new bound at the road and then the others are iron pins, which is acceptable. So, I didn't
Well,
comment
look,
on it.
since it's showing on the plan, we don't have to state it
Right.
redundantly.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Anything else anybody, excuse me, has a question with on the conditions?
So, I have something with the conditions that the number 10 and number 11 aren't my comments.
Where'd they come from?
Number 12, I think these are my comments from the previous
Yeah,
submission. Well, I'm reading the comments that I sent, and I'm like, these aren't my comments.
So do you want to?
So 10, 11,
You want to strike 10?
10,
12, and
strike-
13 are not comments that I had for this submission.
Oh, because they're for a subdivision approval.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's like the same file name that I sent Joanne from the previous one. Yeah, those, so 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Cut and paste wasn't working quite as well as it should have in the planning administrator's office.
Let me just,
I'll have
number
to
8,
check.
number 8's not,
You know what's funny,
Necessary.
like, he sends me his comments in an email attachment. Then I cut them, and I move them over and
That's it.
paste them. And they
So number 8
never,
you want to strike?
yeah, 8, 10,
it's all
11, 12, and
messed up.
13.
It's
Except
always,
that-
they're always
Yeah,
messed
because
up.
the one about under new subdivision shall be underground, that's a road subdivision.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not a subdivision of 2 lots.
Yeah, so the 8, 10, 11, 12, and 13 can all be
What
struck.
about 15?
15, did I miss 15?
Drainage main, well, they are going to put those structures on site to.
Yeah,
There are the road
to mitigate the water on
Right.
site.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, so when
All
they
right.
have BMPs on site, we
All right,
request
okay, I
that
just
with
wanted to
all,
make sure.
all of them now.
So we'll need to get that.
Right, and
Scott will send
that'll
it
give
to
you the leverage if people do
Right.
shift things around.
Yep,
so.
yeah,
well, then
and
people won't report it and
since there's a chance it could change, we'll make
Simple
it kind
matter,
of
and they
generic.
won't do it.
I'll send you the, our template.
Do you remember when we used to allow the road drainage ponds to be in people's front yards? And you go back 3 years later and there's a lawn there?
I know, believe me.
There's an entire subdivision like that in this town.
So we are eliminating 8,
Yeah, more than
10, 11, 12, and 13. So when your staff conditions could be duly noted as 1 through 7, 9, and 14 through 17. You concur, Barbara? I think it's your
Yes.
motion. Are you done with your motion?
Yes.
Has anybody seconded your motion?
One second.
Colleen? Oh, you did already, Brian?
No, it's Colleen.
Colleen, okay. All right, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. Abstentions, approved. Bye. All done.
Thank you very much, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging in there.
All right, we have one item. Joanne's going to give us a very brief verbal update on the Hadley Falls project. She called me, I called Colleen, and we talked a little bit about what may or may not be able to be approved, and she and Derek worked something out, so could you please explain?
Yes, so the site is, you know, as you know, it's under construction and it's almost ready to go. So we all met the beginning of the week and decided to, instead of holding up the 2 building permits for buildings 1 and 2.
No, COs.
COs, I'm sorry, COs for buildings 1 and 2. We decided that we would include all of the outstanding items for the CO for building 3. This way they could start moving in for those other 2 buildings once the site work around them is completed. The elevator inspection was done like 2 days ago for building 2. And so that building is all set. Building 1 I think we'll have an elevator inspection Wednesday. I think the guy's coming back. That was like the last 2 things.
That was this week.
This week.
It's-
Oh,
yeah,
he did it,
3's
that's right.
the one that still needs an
Okay.
inspection.
And they were paved, they were supposed to pave, and then the rain was a little, you know, predicted to be harder than it was, so they're paving tomorrow. And so once they're finished paving and everything is all ready, the first person is supposed to move into building 1, that's the old factory building.
We don't need to hear all
May
that.
1st.
Just tell her what we did.
And so what we did was we put the list together and we agreed that all of those outstanding items will be included and building 3 can't be occupied until those items are taken care of.
And the
So,
precedent for this action was the condominiums that were, the homes that were built across from the villa. We held the last 2 or 3 homes as our hostages for all the items that weren't completed, and they had to be completed before those last couple of COs could be issued down there. And then ultimately, they posted a bond, I thought, for planting as it was.
they did because it was the winter and
So,
they couldn't plant.
This project down here, Factory Street, if they are not completed before they want to occupy Building 3, they still have the option to request a bond, performance bond, and that would run through DPW.
So my understanding is they are looking for COs on building 3 next week. So
Next
I
week.
have HTA coming
Wait a
Monday.
minute, let's stop. I thought Building 3 wasn't even close to being done.
This was news to me that I was told
I haven't
today.
talked to them about that.
No, I'm sorry.
Scott
yes.
talked to them today.
So they're gonna request them next week. So HTA is coming to do the final walkthrough on Monday. It's being striped Monday, so obviously that's one thing that might not be checked off, and there might be some landscaping that's not checked off. I walked the site yesterday and didn't see anything glaring. There is on the site plan, there's this patio area near the smokestack. And there's a landscaped area in the middle of the patio it's mulched and it's got plants, and on the plan it calls out a water feature. Well, somebody decided that they didn't want to put the water feature in anymore, so I'm not sure what that means. It's on the plan, it's not done. And then the only other thing that I know of that definitely won't be done is they have also called out on the plan, it's like a built-in gas grill that's, stone, and then the insert, that won't be complete because they're still waiting on the insert. So I don't know.
Well, anything that's not completed has to be bonded.
Okay.
And this is new to us because in our discussion, there's an outstanding bill for the sewer department that
Yeah, I spoke
to
to
be
Corey
paid.
about that this morning, and
As long as that's in it, as long as that's right up here,
I think it hadn't been paid yet. Yeah.
It's on the list.
it's gotta be done.
But I have a question. So your board does not meet again until May 23rd.
Right.
Which means that you have to, according to your regulations, you have to approve the bond. So really, it says in the regulations that planning board approves the amount and the type of surety. But really, the amount is approved by Scott because he's...
I understand what you're going. These people were told months ago that these outstanding items needed to be bonded. They decided to wait until it was 2 weeks before they wanted to do their COs, and they're begging forgiveness about this bond issue. You just better tell them that the Building 3, if they need bonded items, will have to be done at a planning meeting, and we will not decide it until then.
Okay. But I did tell them that we can't issue the CO until that list is taken care of, and they said that they were fine with that. That
The
was
list could get
yesterday.
longer after HTA's
Well,
final
true.
walkthrough too, so.
That's true.
I don't mind helping them out, but they didn't help themselves when they were warned a long time ago about these bonding issues. They chose to ignore them, so it's their problem.
Tim, you're sort of on fire tonight. I really don't think you should talk about them as having chosen to ignore the bonding issues. It sounds like they've been in discussion with staff. They're gonna have to bond stuff. And they're just, it's not, they'll have to go out and get a bond.
It all started 2 weeks ago, because I've been talking to her
Tim,
twice a day, it seems like, about this stuff.
Okay, I'm not gonna say anything.
The
You just
reason,
accused somebody of ignoring something and then told me you've been talking about it for 2 weeks.
No, talking to Joanne about how we're gonna handle this.
the reason that they felt it was silly to get a bond is because they have to come back to this board to have that bond approved. And by the time
tell you
they
what.
did that, they would have had most of those items.
Here's what we're gonna do, we're gonna vote on it right now, whether we're going to press the issue or we're gonna give them administrative approval to do the bond without the planning board voting on it,
What?
which is what they're asking
Can,
for.
can we do that?
This is what Derek had suggested we look
That's what
at
they're
in the
asking for.
future. Is because the bonds are, it's tough when you have to wait so many weeks for the meeting and all of that. And Derek said in the future, may want to change the regulations to allow the planning board obviously to do it, but then to allow staff. Because Scott is the one who actually approves the amount anyway, based on the estimates and all of that. So that's just what Derek has said.
Right now, if the regulation says it needs to be
To be
approved by the
planning
planning
board.
board, then that's, either complete the improvements or come to us and we'll approve it. But I think logistically in the future, it's something we should look at, the regulations, and let it be an administrative function. But I don't think we can just, change. I understand the hardship right now of them trying to get COs, but we have to follow our regulations.
Motion to adjourn.
Who wants to second it?
Second.
Everybody.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion goes. Thank you, we're done.